all things wine with you. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am excited, Kim, because today we have a very special guest joining us from Bordeaux, France, Mr. Gerard Patafora. I always have to watch how I say it, Gerard. I want to thank you for joining us. Gerard is representing bluewine.com, a website we discovered. How are you, Gerard?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, we enjoy this because this is a topic. Kim and I are always looking for trends in the wine world, and BlueWine.com was all over Newswire and wine business articles about your site, which is dedicated to wine and spirits documentaries. Can you please tell us, Gerard, a little bit about yourself and the company?
Okay, so I'm French.
It was good.
You all set, Jamie? Chris, you all set? Good evening. Time being 7 o'clock, I call the March 15th, 2023 meeting of the Franklin Town Council to order. Please pause for a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Happy new chairs. Announcements from the chair. All citizens are now welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Meetings are live streamed by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 29. In an effort to maximize citizen engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone, or you may click the Zoom link that is on the posted agenda and on the town's website. The phone number is 1-929-205-6099, and the Zoom ID is 876-1255-4946, and then you need to hit the pound sign. So once again, the Zoom ID, 876-1255-4946 pound. If residents are just interested in watching the meeting, it will also be live streamed by Franklin TV. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Citizens are welcome to express their views for up to 3 minutes on a matter that is not on the agenda. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during citizens' comments. The town council will give remarks appropriate consideration and may ask the town administrator to review the matter. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Please come forward. Just name and address, please.
I don't want to get yelled at by Steve for not talking into the microphone, so I'll do my best. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amber Wilson, 903 Lincoln Street. I'm here as a resident, but also as the president of the LGBTQ Alliance here in Franklin. We are having our second annual Celebrate with Pride event on June 25th. I wanted to make everybody aware. But in addition to that, I wanted to propose that we fly a pride flag outside of Town Hall here, either the entire month of June or at least the weekend of our pride event. This is looking forward to be an annual event. The city of Boston does it. A lot of other towns and cities within the Commonwealth do it. And I think it would be a great showing of support from the town admin and town council if we could show our support, especially given the current climate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in council chambers that would like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone out there in Zoom land that would like to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? I don't see anyone. You don't see anyone, Jamie? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, and I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 1st, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Discussion, additions, deletions. Seeing none, the vote will come on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is proclamations, recognitions, and tonight we have 4 swearing in. Chief, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Yes, we've hired again. These are the 27th through 30th officers we've hired in the last 6.5 years that we will be introducing tonight. So great night for the PD. Their families are here as well. I'm going to bring them up one at a time and just embarrass them a little bit, but you know.
As well you should.
Officer Silva.
Special dispensation for being first.
Well, the first one hired out of the 4.
Yeah.
So here we go. All right, so it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Officer Marciano Silva to the Franklin Police Department. Marciano started his law enforcement career as a reserve police officer with the Westport Police Department in 2018. He was hired by the New Bedford Police Department in 2019 and attended the first recruit officer class at the Cape Cod Municipal Police Academy. Upon graduation, he worked in both patrol operations and with the Gang Narcotics Unit in New Bedford. In October 2021, Marciano accepted employment with the Sutton Police Department, where he remained until joining the Franklin Police Department in July. Marciano is fluent in both Portuguese and Spanish. Marciano has an associate's degree in criminal justice from Bristol Community College and is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree at Bridgewater State University, and he currently resides in Franklin. Later on, he will be pinned by his wife, Michelle Silva. Officer Gula. My pleasure to introduce and welcome Officer Christopher Gula. A lifelong resident of Franklin, Chris joined the U.S. Navy in 2015 after graduating Franklin High School and served as a security force sentry. In 2017, after 2 years with the Navy, Chris joined the U.S. Army and served as an infantry mortarman leader until his honorable discharge in 2020. After 5 years of military service, Chris worked as an administrative liaison at Franklin High School, assisting the school administration with supervision of the students. Chris was hired by the Franklin PD and attended the 30th recruit officer class at the Boylston Police Academy, graduating on December 30th, 2022. Chris is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in criminal justice at Southern New Hampshire University. Later, Chris will be pinned by his wife, Emily. Officer LaCure. My pleasure to introduce and welcome Officer Michael LaCure. Michael is no stranger to Franklin, as he grew up in town and attended the Parmenta, Sullivan, and Remington schools before he and his family moved to Maynard, Massachusetts. He began his law enforcement career in 2013 as a dispatcher for the Concord, Massachusetts Police Department. In 2014, he attended the 166th New Hampshire Police Academy and was soon hired as a patrol officer with the Milford, New Hampshire Police Department, where he served as a drug recognition expert and a field training officer. In December 2021, Michael was promoted to sergeant and supervised a patrol shift, as well as the Milford, New Hampshire Police Department's K-9 program. Michael has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Fitchburg State University, and Michael recently joined the department in January, and he will be pinned by his wife, Megan, and his son, Connor. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, because I know I'll be back up here in a couple of months, Officer Quinn. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Officer Kevin Quinn. In 2019, Kevin started his career in law enforcement as a dispatcher with the Walpole Police Department, where he remained for 2 years. In October 2021, Kevin was hired by the University of Massachusetts Boston Police Department as a patrol officer recruit and attended the 14th recruit officer class at the Randolph Police Academy. Kevin has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Westfield State University and is currently enrolled at the University of Massachusetts Lowell pursuing a master's degree in criminal justice. And Kevin just recently joined the department this month, currently in field training. Pinning Kevin will be his father, Thomas Quinn, works for the Boston Fire Department.
So I'm going to swear them in separately because they deserve it.
It's your choice, you're the clerk.
Welcome, all of you. Congratulations, a great choice. We're lucky to have you. And another Portuguese. I'm going to say your name right because I can. All right, ready? Marciano, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Marciano Silva,
I, Marciano Silva,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute the duties
to faithfully execute the duties
as a police officer
as a police
for
officer
the town of
for
Franklin
the town of Franklin
with respect,
with respect,
integrity,
integrity,
and excellence,
and excellence,
and to uphold the mission
and to uphold the mission
of the department,
the
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of
the
Massachusetts,
state of Massachusetts,
and the laws and ordinances of the town of Franklin, so help me God.
and the laws and ordinances of the town of Franklin, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi. First, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Christopher Gula,
I, Christopher Gula,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute the duties
to faithfully execute the duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
for the town of Franklin
for the town of Franklin
with respect,
with respect,
integrity,
integrity,
and excellence,
and excellence,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Massachusetts,
the state of Massachusetts,
and the laws and ordinances of the town of Franklin,
and the laws and ordinances of the town of Franklin.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Ask you to raise your right hand. How do you say your first name? It's not Michael.
It is Michael.
Oh, it is. I, Michael LaCure,
Michael Cure,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear to
to faithfully execute the duties
faithfully execute the duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
for the town of Franklin
for the town of Franklin
with respect,
with respect,
integrity,
integrity,
and
and
excellence,
excellence,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Massachusetts,
state of Massachusetts,
and the laws and ordinances
and the laws and ordinances
of the town of Franklin,
of the town of Franklin.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Kevin, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. I, Kevin Quinn,
I, Kevin Quinn,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute the duties
to faithfully execute the duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
for the town of Franklin
for the town of Franklin
with respect,
with respect,
integrity,
integrity,
and
and
excellence,
excellence,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
and to uphold the mission of the department,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of
the
Massachusetts,
state of Massachusetts,
and the laws and ordinances
and the laws and ordinances
of the town of Franklin.
of the town of
So
Franklin.
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
All right, can we have the family members come up, pin the badges?
have any EMTs here tonight.
Thank you.
Took us a long time to get some more Franklin kids. Come on.
Congratulations. Look forward to working with you guys. Congratulations. Look forward to working with you. He's just a lawyer. Look forward to working with you. Hopefully you never have to work with him. Take care, Rachel. He's comfy in his chair.
We're going to just
Look at him.
take just a brief little pause here. Let the chief and their family get downstairs to take some pictures. Take 2 minutes.
And to taste volcanic wines. So I met some very small winemaker, and those people were just amazing. So great to meet them, to have the chance to talk to them. They share their story, they share their passion, and I would admire those people instead of someone famous.
It is nice to be able to give a voice to those really small producers, the not famous wine people who are still doing all of that really wonderful work and producing beautiful bottles that if you put their name on the back of the bottle, it wouldn't really mean anything to anybody, but it's what is in there, and it's their life's work and all of these things. And they might not be famous, but they're still doing all of this amazing stuff in the world of wine.
You know, when I was young, in the 20s or 30s, younger, right? Of course, I was impressed by all the great labels from Bordeaux, from California, from the Super Toscane in Italy, and so on. So, thanks to my work in the wine business, I had the chance to taste those wine without paying, which is a great advantage.
Very helpful.
But anyway, a new wine, it's always a new discovery. And I think as soon as you get older, you want to have an experience. You want to feel something. You are less interested by, just show off with a nice bottle, with a great label or something like this.
Gerard, tell me, do you have a favorite movie in the wine world that you like? Like on your site, you have the classics like Sideways and Bottle Shock, but is there a favorite movie of yours?
I really like the movie Wine and War.
Yeah.
It's in Lebanese.
Oh.
In Lebanon, sorry. And it tells the story about those winemakers who are making great wines under the bomb, under period of war and something like this. So they have courage and passion to make wine there in this place, weird place sometimes. So I really like this movie.
Yeah, and they have Wine and War. There's books, part 1 and part 2. I believe I just got part 2. I got to finish that, but yeah, I'm excited to hear you say that.
I was just going to say that we have so many wine books out there. I have bookshelves full at my house and at my work of books on wine, mostly nonfiction, history, kind of all over the place. But it doesn't seem like there's as much for film, and maybe that is changing. I feel like film is a really good medium for wine because not only can you can't taste the wine, but you can be walked through a vineyard and you can see exactly how things are done. And I think that is something that is one of the more difficult things to get across in book or in a wine class, that feel of actually being there. So I think that film really can have a real positive impact on getting that understanding of what's actually going on in a vineyard for people, whether they're students or whether they're just appreciators of wine.
During the COVID, I bought a book on internet. It's an old edition. The name is The Kingdom of Wine and Wine Geese. and he tells the story about the Irish people who left Ireland and came in, first of all came in France, and the first one was NSC who settled up in Cognac to build Cognac NSC.
Sure.
And then you can learn a great story about a lot of Irish people who found that, famous wine that still exist in Bordeaux, and famous chateaus like Leuville-Barton in Saint-Julien. So this book was really interesting, and I'm sure a filmmaker or a producer will probably make a film one day about this story from the Irish people.
Yeah. I remember reading, I don't even know what book it was, what was in, but those stories that as Americans, we always hear about when the Irish wave of immigration that came to the United States and, where did they land and how did that impact just everything about American culture when we had this influx of Irish immigration. So it was very interesting to read that perspective of those folks who also left Ireland, but then went to France instead of went to the United States. So we really only, hear the U.S. side of it, but to know that these waves of immigration went out to other countries as well, and to hear about those stories of those immigrants in France and how they had this really major impact on the wine and beverage world because they had to leave home was very fascinating.
And it looks like the filmmakers are starting to pick up that people want to see more of these stories. And last year, there were 2 TV shows, one of which was on your show section called Grand Cru. There were 2 series at one time that were run in the United States, and Kim and I reviewed them. And I don't think they ever finished. It's sad because the film producers and these TV shows, they have these ideas that we can do wine stories and talk about wine. And Kim and I get excited, and then they kind of go off the air, Gerard. And I think, like you were saying, there's so many stories out there that can be put into a documentary or a movie, like Sideways or Bottle Shock was, which was a true story. There's just so much content. It excites me that it's out there. And that's why when we saw your site, I'm like, yeah, someone gets it. They're putting it all together for wine geeks like us who just want one spot to go to and see everything. There was one section you label as, it says Wine Council and Videos Wine Estate. What's the thought behind those 2 sections of the website?
Some council, like Burgundy, in Burgundy, you have an association of wine producers, and they call the council board. Like in California, you have that kind of things as well. And sometimes those wine council, they invest in a filmmaker to produce great content, great documentary to tell the story about their region. So we decided to build the section for them. And regarding the chateaus, it's because very few, but we can find some very nice artwork, very short film, made by few domain chateaus, vineyards.
So there's a lot of independent filmmakers who are making videos and documentaries for wineries that could be picked up on the site, and you could help them promote as well.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Exactly. So it's the CIVB for Bordeaux that did.
Yeah. CIVB is for Bordeaux.
Okay.
Call the March 15th meeting of the Franklin Town Council back to order. Next item on the agenda is appointments, Master Plan Committee. Jamie?
Sure. So through you, Mr. Chairman, so tonight before the council is the appointment of the Master Plan Committee members. As the memo says in the packet, we had just about 16 folks apply. I will say some of the people that are on the list, not the folks before you tonight for appointment. Some of the other folks that applied for multiple committees. So just because someone's not necessarily on the list tonight doesn't mean they may not get appointed to anything. As you can see, there were also some individuals that were of the same family, and there were some other people that were on similar boards and committees. And so we tried to put forth a balanced proposal of what we thought represented a wide array of the community, and tried to nominate folks who had the time, had the clear passion and dedication to put the work in. As I explained at the chart when we approved the committee charge, this is going to be a 12 to 18 month long project. It is going to require a tremendous amount of time and reading of not just the previous master plan, but there will be a lot of documentation and subcommittees to participate in throughout. As going through with the 6 at-large, just so everybody remembers, the 7 members of both the council, the planning board, conservation commission, and ZBA were nominations based off those committee discussions. And all those committees had a conversation within the last few weeks and brought those committee appointments to myself, and I am respecting the wishes of those committees and bringing those appointments to the council. As for the at-large appointments, I think we see some familiar names on there, and we see some new names on there. So there's a healthy balance of folks that have been in the planning process before, that have done master plans. We put the applications in the packet as well, so at least councilors have at least a little bit of background on those folks. And I think that's about it. So happy to answer any questions that folks have. And I do not expect, just for everybody's edification, don't expect the master plan committee process to start next week. Okay, just to temper everybody's expectations, because that's what I do apparently a lot now, it's going to take a little while to get a timeline, a process, and working with Brian and Amy and the staff downstairs. This project is being led by the planning department after tonight, once the appointments get made. As I've spoken of before, but for the folks at home, the council is adequately funded the master plan process. They have the resources that they need. And I'm going to leave it to Brian and the staff down in the planning department to put out and work with the chair of the committee to be able to come up with a reasonable timeline. If there's an RFP that has to go out for procurement, things of that sort, just so that the administrative pieces can get handled in advance, so everybody can kind of put on their calendars exactly what the time commitments are. So if anybody has any questions about the master plan process, Brian's here. I can hopefully answer some of that stuff, and away we go. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. For those of you that have been waiting for it, we waited 11 years, and now you have a full master plan committee before you to get to work.
Absolutely. And before I go to the council for questions, I'd like the clerk to read the appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to read these appointments. This is for the Master Plan Update Committee. From the Franklin Town Council, Glenn Jones of 172 School Street, Kobe Frangillo of 140 Maple Street, Melanie Hamlin of 70 Daniel Street. From the Franklin Planning Board, Richard Power of 10 Royal Court, Jennifer Williams of 28 Queen Street. From the Zoning Board of Appeals, Bruce Hunchard of 496 Summer Street. From Franklin Conservation Commission, Megan Hagan of 13 Woodhaven Drive. 6 citizens at large, Kenneth Elmore, 29 School Street, Erin Gallagher of 2 Cohasset Way, Joe Halligan of 1 New Well Drive, Janelle Lang of 2 Harlow Pond Court, Eric Stetzer of 7 Mercer Lane, and Gino Carlucci of 1 Tony Lane. Motion to ratify the appointments, the names listed above, by the town administrator to serve as members of the Master Plan Update Committee with terms to expire upon delivery of a final report to the planning board for their consideration.
Second. Motion and second. Discussion. Councilor Frangillo.
I would just say this, that's a difficult task to put together a master plan committee, and I think we have a really great group in front of us, so I commend you for putting this group together. I'm sure you had quite a few people to interview, and it's too bad that we can't, there's only so many seats, so we can't get everything. I think it gets a pretty wide diversity. If I could just name it, I think where it's lightest and where I think we need to make sure that we put a concerted effort in terms of actually engaging people throughout the process, around our schools, around our arts, and around agriculture, particularly with tying in that arts and culture, but really on all 3 of those, making sure that we're keeping in mind that there are stakeholders in those spaces that we want to include throughout this process.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an excellent selection of very bright and intelligent individuals. I know will make their best effort towards putting forth a good master plan. It is a time-consuming effort, so thank you for joining on, considering how busy times can get. But I do want to point out to the council, as well as the public at large, that we are actually charged by Massachusetts state law under Section 81D to, as a city and town, under Section 81, we shall make a master plan for such city and towns, and parts of, therefore, Said board may be deemed advisable from time to time. The last time that we did this was 2013, so technically speaking, you can refer to this as not a new master plan, but as simply an update since the 2013 one. There will be portions of the last master plan. If everyone would like, they can always visit the town's website, type in master plan under search and look up the current existing master plan, read some highlights from it. I'm certain as we go through this process, Brian and the team, we will be happy to have crossed off many of the items that were listed on the previous master plan because many of them have been accomplished. We're looking forward to update that and look forward to making the future a bright and prosperous thing for the town of Franklin, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, the vote will come on the motion to approve, to ratify the appointments presented this evening by the town administrator. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda, public hearings. We don't have any this evening. License transaction, again, we don't have any this evening. Presentation and discussions. We do have a couple. The first one is discussion on flock cameras. Chief of Police, TJ? And team. And
Yes.
team.
Oh, no, he's the presenter.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. So this was a proposal, we're talking about the flock safety system, which is an automatic license plate reader system. We've done some research on it, and we talked to the town administrator about implementing a program, and we felt that it was important that we bring this to the council to give you an idea or inform you what it is we'd like to do, and then, of course, if there were any questions or anything like that on it. I was introduced to it on a couple different occasions, but most recently in October when I was at the IACP, or the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference, in which a good friend of mine that I attended the FBI National Academy with from Vestavia Hills, Alabama, ended up telling me about, the flock system as we were walking through the vendor show, which is, a couple of football fields full of, everything you can imagine, from software to badges to, aircraft. It's kind of like the candy store for law enforcement officers. And he made it a point that we had to go talk to these people because of how much the system they've benefited from having it in their community. And then it just so happened a few months after that Officer Demers ended up coming to me and saying, hey, Michael Demers, I would like to potentially, if you're good with it, Chief, do a little more research on this and try to come up with a proposal. And I was like, absolutely. The deputy chief was also aware of it in the system and what it can do. And so tonight we have Officer Michael Demers is here. He's the one that did all the research on it. He's put together a PowerPoint to talk about it. We're also fortunate to have Laurie Holland, who is a member of, who's an employee with Flock. She's in Zoom land. So that if we have any questions that are of a technical nature that we might not be able to answer, we're hoping that Laura might be able to, maybe fill in those holes. So without further ado, Michael, the floor is yours.
All right, I think I'm gonna sit down, just.
You do what you want, bud.
Okay. So, good evening. How are you all doing? I'm Mike Demers, as the chief just pumped me up. I just want to start this presentation by saying that I'm very grateful to be here. I'm grateful that we have such a great command staff, that an idea like this can be floated, and they give us the opportunity to run with it. So as he said, it is a license plate reader system. Often these are called cameras, and I almost cringe at the word because it's not a camera. It just actually takes photographs of license plates, and only the rear license plates of cars. So just to give you like an overview, so to speak, staffing levels. As you know, we're always hiring. We're just constantly trying to fill spots. But at the same time, you have limitations, obviously, with the budget and how many officers we can retain due to the cost of that. So what we're looking to do is augment our force through this system. So with this system, we'd be able to essentially let officers access another tool in investigating situations that we run into. an interesting fact that was brought to me by Laura Ann was actually that 75% of crimes committed in the United States involve a motor vehicle. That was quoted by the International Association of the Chiefs of Police. As you know, license plate reader technology is nothing new. After 9/11, there was a big push in grant funding, and a lot of departments put them on cars. That's not what we're proposing here tonight. We want a stationary system in 2 spots in town specifically that would be positioned to monitor traffic. So the reason behind this, we can actually work with our neighboring partners, people that we work in, task force, the federal government, that type of thing, and strengthen our partnerships just to kind of get on the same page, so to speak. So examples of nearby Massachusetts communities, we actually have Bellingham and Medway, 2 towns that touch us, that have these systems already. So in us having this system, we'd be able to connect with them on another level beyond what we already work with them at. So what I really like about the system is there's an additional avenue of accountability there. Flock offers this, it's a portal. And obviously on our website, we list our uses of force. We want to be as transparent as possible with the public, so everybody knows exactly what's going on, because we have nothing to hide. So they have this portal that the public can actually access and look and see how many cars are being read, how many vehicles have passed that certain point. So it may have actual uses beyond policing too, if we want to do like an infrastructure study working with the highway department. And it's minimally invasive, because we're not sticking this on a car. It's not driving around, subject to the patterns of any officer. It's a stationary, known point where we can read the license plates. So, we have a lot of potential uses for this. Often we're called for suicidal individuals. Someone calls a loved one and they tell them that they are not feeling good and they are thinking about ending their lives. Often what we end up doing is we have to go through the cell phone carriers and actually ping cell phones, try and locate. Sometimes the pings are as big as a mile, so we're left with a big circle around the cell phone towers where we have to find out where this person is. And in combination with this, if we had a camera, and say, for example, that person's on the highway, they get off the highway, we get an alert because we have that specific plate that we're looking for. We've entered it into what we call a hot list. And then that would alert us that that person's getting off on the highway, so we can then go and speak with them and make sure that they're okay and get them the help they need. So another interesting aspect of this is it can point out operators of vehicles that have felonious warrants. So we're talking like violent crimes here, not somebody that forgot to renew their license or couldn't pay their insurance this month because of a hard time. We looking for people that murder, assaults with dangerous weapons, that type of thing, home invasion. So missing children. This actually interlocks with the Amber Alert system. So if someone had a broadcast that a child was abducted, we can actually upload that and then locate that vehicle. If it gets off, we get a flag alert that says, hey, this vehicle is here at this time. So we can work with the state police too if we allow them the access to the data. And local drug, firearm, and human trafficking interdiction with community partners. As you may or may not know, we have a great task force officer that works in collaboration with other communities as part of our department. And this is just another piece of the puzzle that he can bring to that dessert, so to speak. It's another piece of the pie. He brings that, and now there's another data point that we could say, okay, we know that this person who's involved in human trafficking stops at this hotel or frequents this town. We'll know that, so that way we can do something about it. So interesting too. We've recently saw within the last year, I would say, an uptick in the number of catalytic converters being stolen. It's like the newest thing. They're cutting them right out of cars. It's unbelievable. So these people come into town. Often, actually, it's funny. I remember one particular car, and it vexed me because I knew that there was this one type of car that was this one color that was involved with it, and you're always looking for that car. This system would be able to assist in that because it can actually identify specific make, model, and color of the car. So we could put that into a hot list and get a certain time frame. Say, for example, somebody had their catalytic converter cut out. organized retail thefts. This is something I saw a lot over in North Attleboro, but it is traveling north and south from Boston. You know, these people actually target businesses and they just come in and they're organized. It's not the days of, okay, we're just gonna go in and grab a couple things and run out. No, these people are coordinating online. There's social media, Facebook pages dedicated to, it's unbelievable. I wouldn't believe it unless I saw it. So, as I already said, suicidal individuals, stolen vehicles and license plates. We're seeing a lot of this too, is people will steal a plate off of somebody in like Braintree. They'll put it on a car, they come to Franklin, and they try and commit a crime using a false attached plate. So with this system, we could actually look at a certain time frame and say, okay, this plate doesn't belong in this car. It's not coming back to that. Because the plate is actually synced to a database that's constantly refreshed by the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And identifying vehicles involved in crimes. So I can think of, in the last 45 days, we've had 2 specific incidents that were really concerning. I happened to be working during both of them. There was a situation where there was a road rage incident and somebody had fired shots at a car, and it was a young lady and a husband and a 2-year-old child. We had to find that car immediately. And what we had to do, we had to mobilize a number of our detectives and off-duty patrol officers to canvass the area and go house to house to check people, say, hey, can I look at your, your Ring camera? Do you mind sharing that with us? And sometimes they say no. You know, you'd be surprised, even if you explain the situation. But with this technology, that car coming by or jumping on the highway after that event, we'd be able to go back in that certain time frame and look for the specific vehicle that was described in the report. In the same area, this is the King Street, actually, the King Street exit that this happened at. In the same area, I can't remember, was it the same day? They all melt together. Yeah, so 2 hours later, you can't make this up. You should have live PD from Franklin, you know. But so 2 hours later, we had a situation where another road rage incident from the highway, where someone had pulled up to somebody at a gas station, and he scared the gentleman to death. He shows him a firearm because he's mad he cut him off. This is what the world's coming to, and we had to find that vehicle. Luckily, that gentleman took a picture of it. He had the composure to do that, but that's a rarity, I would say. All right. So, and potentially identifying witnesses. So, if you just happen to be at the wrong place at the right time, and you witness a crime, sometimes you're not going to stick around. You know, you got to live your life, and you're on your way to work or whatever. If we had to go back and like talk to somebody to see what they saw, we could then again pull that time frame and look at every plate. We'd have a list of plates that we could contact the registered owners and say, hey, did you see anything? You know, anything that could help us solve any type of public safety issues. So with the logic of the locations, we really wanted to maximize this because it's not, like I said, we're not sticking them in the center of town. We don't want to know that, you know, you're going to the Rome on Friday, every Friday, you know? So we stuck them by the highway because most of the people that are coming into town to commit these crimes are coming from outside of town.
Right. It's
It's not the people that, we're a bedside community, so these people are coming in off the highway, and the highway is the avenue of quickest approach. So they'll come in, they commit the crime, whether it be like stealing a car, stealing license plates, breaking into cars, whatever it may be, and then they jump back on the highway and they go to the next target. By setting this up, this is just another tool. It's almost like setting up a deterrent, you know? People know. It's posted, it's conspicuous, there's no secrets about it, it's there. And people getting off the highway will know that. And once again, like I said, you know, criminals talk. So they can post that on their Facebook page, you know, hey, Franklin got new license plate readers, look out, you know, and hopefully they go somewhere else. You know, we can't stop crime. It's a little unrealistic, but this is a tool to help us deter it and help us to actually solve it. So this is the first proposed location we had, the King Street exit. And as I mentioned, cars getting off of the highway. Oh. So cars coming off the highway, it would just capture the rear. It doesn't capture the front. And I think that's a misconception. People are like, well, you know, they're going to get off the highway and they got their big gulp and, You know, like, oh, you're going to use it to get us texting and driving? No. We're not going to see the operator. It doesn't retain that data. It just looks at the rear of the car as it comes by and records the license plate. And there's actually established case law on this that license plates are the property of the Registry of Motor Vehicles. There's no expectation of privacy there. This is something that we already do on a consistent basis, but we have to do it by hand. So we're limited with this process, and this just kind of helps automate it. So the second proposed location is the 140 exit. As you know, we have the industrial park there. It's been a huge target of the catalytic converter thefts, frauds, people fishing for mail. That's the newest thing too, is they'll go into mailboxes and try and steal checks, wash them, and then present for payment modified. So that would also give us another option if we knew, for example, someone was in the area and they had their tool that they used to get the bills out of the mailbox. We could then look back and possibly identify subjects. So why flock safety? I looked around a lot, and we've come a long way since 2001. The first iteration of cruiser-mounted license plate readers, actually, when they first deployed it, it used to crash all the time. It ran if you drove past a one-way sign, it would run that, and it ran, like one way was run like 1 million times over the course of like a month, and it was a waste. It wasn't very accurate either. You get misreads. The technology's here. We've advanced considerably in camera technology. They've made it smaller, they've made it cheaper, and for a great cost benefit, we get $2,500 annually per camera, and a one-time installation cost would be the operating cost that we're looking at for this. And their proprietary network to connect points of data. So this isn't just a Massachusetts thing. We've also seen regional people. I recall a situation where there was an ATM that was targeted for theft. And I think 3 days later, the guy was back. It was coming down in Texas. They tracked him because the Secret Service was looking into him. But, we could actually access other departments that are willing to share information and say, hey, Texas, you got anything? And it just queries it if we want to go that far. And we can actually track them, to say, okay, there's been a string of ATM hits. We can track them down the coast. So it's amazing that that's where we're at, but it always brings up the ethical stance for me. I'm really concerned about Big Brother, and I never thought in a million years I'd be up here pitching a license plate reader. But this ethical stance, there's actually a lot of legalities to it that this company, if they say that they're going to delete the data every 30 days, they have to delete the data. They will get sued and fined. It's not pretty if they don't comply to their own policies. So they do it on a 30-day basis, but we can customize it if we find that that's too much. We could always reel it back, or if we find that we need more time, we could always push it forward. And as far as data ownership, we own the data of all the plates that are coming into our town. So they're not going to take that and sell it to, say, for example, Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola knows, okay, we have like our target demographic of 40 to 55 coming off the highway at 2 p.m. It's geotagging and all that. So I'm now going to turn it over to Laura Ann from Flock, and she's just going to talk a little bit about the technicalities of the system.
Hi there. Hi, Officer Demers. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for letting me join virtually tonight. Like Officer Demers and Chief Lynch said, my name is Laura Ann Holland, and I work in community education and local government policy for Flock. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about our Flock Falcon devices, our vehicle recognition system, the way that it works, some of the system specifications, and then how we've tried to approach balancing privacy considerations with giving law enforcement the data that we know they need in order to solve crime. Would it be helpful, everybody, if I shared my screen, or can you guys still see the presentation that's being presented?
Can you guys see the presentation?
We're fine. We can see it.
Okay, great. Just making sure everybody can see it. All right. So as Officer Dimmer said, our automated license plate reading technology takes a picture of the back of a vehicle and then stores that image in a database and classifies the image based on some key characteristics like make of the car, type of vehicle, if it's a sedan, a truck, an SUV. It will give the license plate, but also will allow officers to search based on partial plates or whether there's a missing vehicle or a temporary tag. It can also classify based on what state the license plate is in, and then if there are any unique vehicle features. And we call all of those different pieces of data that can be searched by your officers the vehicle fingerprint. And we know that sometimes officers don't get the full image, right? They only get an eyewitness account that it was a red SUV. And so being able to have the ability to search based on what an eyewitness says or what information they do have can be pivotal in finding an investigative lead. As Officer Demers highlighted, right, it's just a picture of the back of a car, and we actually will take a series of pictures and then upload the best one to your server, and all the others are deleted, but it can capture as much as 75 mile per hour traveling vehicle. And we've done some case studies with other communities where we have about 30% more accurate reads. When we think about accuracy for the license plate number, that's one thing, right? But when we think about accuracy at Flock, we also think about the way that all of the other details and data points that I mentioned are categorized. And so there's two ways that something can be accurate. One, was the picture taken at all, right? So did the vehicle pass, and did we accurately capture an image of the vehicle? But then there's also a more precision piece, right? Did we accurately classify those data points? Did we accurately give the license plate number? And on both instances, we're at above 99% accuracy. But one piece that I will clarify with our precision accuracy, whenever we're giving a license plate number, we actually also will give a probability of accuracy in addition to the number to your police officers. So let's say there is a license plate associated with an Amber Alert, and we take a picture of the car and think that it's a certain license plate and will alert an officer. We'll also give them a probability and say, it's 70% that this is an accurate read of this license plate. So it gives them additional data points to be able to act on before responding to an alert from us. Yes, we're cloud-based connection. So the way that works is that we take a picture and then we send it to a cloud server and store it for you. And we're encrypted end to end from that process. We transfer our data through LTE, and we have solar powered devices and also AC powered, depending on what works best for the locations that Officer Demers and Chief Lynch select. The hot lists that we integrate into our system are from the Federal Registry. So the National Center for Information, National Criminal Information Center, sorry, excuse me. That hot list of wanted vehicles that are associated with felony crimes and stolen vehicles, and then also with the databases on missing persons and Amber Alerts. We also allow our customers to create custom hot lists, like what Officer Demers described, but those custom hot lists are not shared globally within the system. They're only used with officers that need that data for a particular investigation. Officer Demers has already covered a lot of this, but just like he said, whenever we talk about what the system can do, it's really important for us also to make sure to clarify what it does not do, so that your residents and you guys on the town council are comfortable with the technology and know exactly what it is capable of. So from the get-go, we want to clarify, we do not do facial recognition. That's not a part of Flock Safety's offerings, and is actually articulated in our contract that's not a feature that we do. We also are not storing data for a long amount of time, and our customers own their data. So that's really important, because there's some other companies out there that in other technology, right, that sells data without customers knowing. And I think we all feel a little potentially uncomfortable with that based on our cell phones and our credit cards, right? But with a Flock Safety partnership, you guys are in total control of your data with the police department, and they can decide how they share it, and we will never share it without the police department's permission. I think we can go ahead and go to the next slide, because I think this piece from the American Civil Liberties Union is really important. In 2014, the American Civil Liberties Union published a report with some specific recommendations about using vehicle recognition technology. And we took that report seriously and tried to develop our product and our partnership with law enforcement in such a way that those recommendations were addressed. And there's about 7 recommendations, but the 3 main things that are of concern with that report are data retention periods. So how long the data is stored, what data is collected and how it's shared and accessed by others, and then whether or not the data is accurate. And I've already talked about the accuracy of the data, but if we think about the retention period, it's really important for law enforcement to have access to both proactive information from a system like this, which is the hot list hit alerts that Officer Dimmers described, right? If there's a missing person or if there is a stolen vehicle, our system will notify officers immediately that vehicle has passed one of our cameras. And so that's what we consider the proactive system. There's also a need for it to be investigative, right? So having the ability to go back in time and find what vehicles were associated with what crimes. And in the report, the ACLU recommended that law enforcement pursue a 3-minute data retention, but that would completely remove the power of the investigative tool that this data can be. And so it's really important that we take the consideration that they made that we don't need to have long-term data retention, but also create enough retention so that officers can really use the tool and find potential suspects and investigative leads to bring victims resolution. We also know that one of the recommendations was on data sharing. And I mentioned that our customers own their data, but as Officer Dimmers highlighted, we provide an audit log that allows the system administrators like Chief Lynch and whoever else he deems to be the administrator to make sure that the system is being used appropriately. So that audit log is similar to the law enforcement network system and the types of audit logs that are in that system, but it includes who did the search, what the investigative reason was, so we require an investigative reason in our system, what filters they used, what time they did the search, what time period they did the search, and whether they downloaded any data from the search. And that audit log includes both Chief Lynch officers and anybody in the Franklin Police Department, but also anyone outside of the Franklin Police Department, maybe from another neighboring jurisdiction who did a search. And so we created that as a way to make sure that our officers had the data that they needed to prevent misuse and take action in the event that it did. Officer Dimmers, I think that's all that we had planned to cover, but I'm sure there are questions, and I'm happy to help you answer any that come up. Thanks so much again for letting me join you guys virtually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, anything else?
No, I just think when we talked about the retention, where, like I said, the American Civil Liberties Union basically had come up with a 3-minute. We just had another incident where what happened was the Metacom and Emergency Communications Center, our regional dispatch, got a call, probably from, I believe it was the state police, that got a cell phone call on the highway that they were, the victim was basically saying somebody showed a firearm, a road rage incident where they showed a firearm. The individual couldn't get the plate, but could tell them that they got off at the King Street exit and took a right and were heading towards Washington Street, towards Bellingham. Of course, the information when the MEC gave it out over the air was, this is 10 minutes old. So we didn't even know about it until approximately 10 minutes after it already happened. Needless to say, did we find a similar looking car? No, we didn't have a license plate. If that camera system was there, then we could have went back to around the time frame with the description from the victim of a certain color, maybe even the make of the car, et cetera, and then we would have some, at least have some leads to be able to look into that. That's why we would, we recommend with the 30 days, being that a majority of organizations that do use it do have a 30-day retention. Other than that, I think that the questions, if anybody has any questions, that's why we're here and why we wanted to make sure that we gave you an opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. Jamie, anything to add before I go to the council?
Nope.
Okay. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great presentation. Your enthusiasm is very salesman-like. It was awesome.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
No, it was good. Way to go. My only concern, though, because and it's a legit concern, one of the major things that they've been adding into our national electrical codes is cybersecurity in regards to equipment. And one of the things I gathered from the discussion tonight is this is going to be an LTE-based network, and it's going to be purposing multiple networks simultaneously, real time, and collecting a lot of data, which means that this makes us, for all intents and purposes, from a cybercrime situation, like a hot thing that anyone would try to get their hands into if they were a hacker. So what is your record? I guess it's more towards Lori than Laura.
Yeah.
What is your track record for cybersecurity? I know just recently the local pipe fitters got hacked through a thermostat in their building, at least that's the rumor, for $6.2 million. And these hackers are just looking to get into critical systems. What level of security do you have on these?
Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. And I'll take a couple minutes to describe a couple different things so that I try to answer your question full circle. First and foremost, we're SOC 2 certified as a company. We take cybersecurity very, very seriously. And we've got a full team of cybersecurity experts that are making sure that our customers' data is protected and it's not vulnerable to attack. We, at this point, have not had any instances of hacking, and I know there's, that's always a concern. But because we are totally separate from our customers' networks, from their law enforcement databases, there's an additional level of protection for the city, right? So there's no intermingling of data systems or of infrastructure there. And so you guys as a city have less vulnerability there. It's also, I think, important to know that we are only taking an image of the back of the car, and there's no personal information in Flock. So there's, there would be only the images from the past 30 days that would be accessible in Flock system. While, of course, that would be problematic if we were hacked, there's not a lot of level of detail or personal information or community information that can be pulled from that information alone. We also, like I said, we encrypt your data at multiple ends of the process. So when the image is taken, when it's sent to the cloud, and when it's stored on our Amazon Web Service servers that we provide for our customers, it's encrypted all in different keys. And of course, they're using Amazon Web Services. We've got an additional level of cybersecurity protection that they provide. The specific cameras that we use also don't have IP addresses, so it makes it a little bit more protected than an otherwise similar camera.
And as far as the camera itself, it's obviously going to be in a rather busy area. If people do become aware of these things, do you think that would promote somebody who posted on Facebook to go out and kick one over? I mean, we've got to have one at each exit, and people start finding out about them. Crooks are crooks. They go out and start knocking these things off. How much is that going to cost us if that's something these crooks decide to do?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I will say in general, we don't see a lot of vandalism of our devices. Only a couple dozen times a year, and we're all over the country at this point. So I will say that's definitely a valid concern because it does happen in some communities, but it's not as big of a concern as you would think. We typically see, if there is vandalism, that it happens actually with a car. And if that happens, of course, you get an image of what vehicle did it. And so it has been helpful for some customers to then be able to file insurance claims and help reimburse the cost of replacement. Replacement is not the same price as paying for a camera. We try to be really affordable in the solutions that we provide to our customers because we want every community to be able to afford it, from the most wealthy to communities that might be smaller. So I can follow up with the exact number of what a replacement cost would be.
Thank you. And which ultimately leads me to my last, but probably most important question. And I know you noted it in the slide, but what would the overall cost?
I'm not asking for any money from
be?
the council.
No.
I'm taking care of it in another way.
Okay. Is this a one-time thing, or is it?
It's a year. It's a one-time cost to actually have it installed, and then it's a yearly thing. So right now, we're only looking at the two. I might be back later on to say, hey, it's working good. Pilot program went well. Maybe we could use some more, but for the time being, we'll be using another stream to be able to pay for that.
Can we get some auto speed traps on like Lincoln Street?
I'll be back for my budget very shortly, and that is
Thank you, Councilor Jones.
I would,
Councilor DeLarco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great presentation. I'm curious now, they're going to be at the exit. Are they going to have them on both exits, inbound, outbound, or just one?
So
Like-
at this time, we're only proposing 2 units, so we wouldn't be able to cover outbound
That's why
and
I'm just
inbound.
kind of curious.
It would just
yeah.
be essentially traffic coming into town.
Oh, just the ones coming into town?
Mhm.
Okay. And it will be dealing with the state police, because obviously you're going to need them if they're going, well, they're coming into town though, right?
Well,
So,
we dictate 100% whether we want to share that with the state police.
Okay,
We want
you
to share it
guys-
with the FBI. That's the beauty of the data ownership.
Okay.
We decide, we could even stop Bellingham from accessing it without having to ask us first. So
Okay.
that's great.
that's kind of what I want, it's just not going to be the state and Bellingham, Medway, everybody going in, it's just you guys.
And I'm sorry, just to bounce back to Councilor Jones's question, I just wanted to clarify too, that if this didn't work out, as the chief said, there is no commitment. We could pull out, it's not like a mandatory 1 year, and they actually would prorate back and refund us on a prorated basis based off of what we've already gone over as far as time.
Okay.
All
Fine,
set?
Great job.
Councilor Sheridan?
Good, thank you for the great presentation. That was my question too about the outbound, inbound. But in like an emergency situation, how quickly could it be moved? If there's a missing person, could you move it to see everybody leaving town or,
Move the camera?
yeah?
It's stationary.
Oh, it's stationary, so
Yeah,
once
we
it's
don't-
sent in? Okay.
Just reads plates.
Okay, but could you move it so that you can get the outbound if you needed to, or? Probably not.
I would say no.
Okay,
We'd
thank
have
you.
to have a separate dedicated camera
Okay.
system. And like the chief said, if we were successful in this and we
Yeah.
decided to go that route,
Okay,
that's
right.
something we could discuss.
Further
Great.
down the line.
Thank you.
Councilor Frangillo?
Yeah, thank you. I think the question about cybersecurity was a great one. The questions about accuracy were answered, and the last one, which was touched upon, and I'd just like to spend a little bit of time. I don't know, but Political Science 101 talks about one of the main government's roles is to balance liberty and security, and certainly we want to keep everyone safe, but we also want to do break down people's liberties as little as we can, in order to keep them safe. And so, obviously, the main thing that came up was like, I wonder what ACLU has to say about this. And so that was cool that you had some response to that. My biggest point, and you got to it at the very end, was this idea of that audit log, right? Can we publish searches and make that as transparent of a process, right? Because it seems like that's the biggest opportunity for some infringement on liberties is, and certainly, I trust our force and the people on it, but anytime we're giving up some liberties, it's harder to claw it back. That audit log, are you preparing to make that public? Is that something that we think that we can make a policy around this, so that when we do a search, that's information that's shared, publicly available?
Chief, I'll jump in to explain what I've seen, options I've seen other communities do. I know, Chief Lynch and Officer Dimmers will be developing a full-scale policy if you guys decide to move forward and feel comfortable. But I have seen as part of that, some communities actually will publish their search audit as part of their transparency portal. We give them that option to do that. It's a CSV file, and the information is routinely updated. But other communities choose not to publish it on the transparency portal, and will instead bring it back to their elected officials in a summary report on a regular basis. Or, your chief is often coming back and talking about public safety in your community. And I've seen a lot of our customers use that opportunity as a chance to provide updates about the audit log instead of publishing it on the transparency portal.
That's great. I think I'd be comfortable with either, but I would be less comfortable with neither. Right? The biggest opportunity for abuse is that either it's as small as, let's see what people are leaving town or coming to town, on a late night, let's get some quick searches in, that's fun, all the way up to, hey, we're concerned about, this political gathering and want to watch who's showing up to it and not. Anything within there, I think, would be my biggest concern around something like this. So if we have a commitment to transparency, then I'd feel much better.
Yeah, and as Michael had mentioned too, we are very transparent. We have, like our use of force is on our website, our policies, and so, not everybody does that. Not every police department has gotten to doing that. And when they talked about the transparency portal when it was first brought up, I was like, absolutely. We could definitely end up doing that. And I can tell you right now that nobody's going to sit there and look at the back of license plates unless it's going to be something that is pertinent to doing it, because it's really not, you'll figure out a plate, then you have to run the plate itself to figure out who it belongs to. It's an investigative tool is what it'll be used for. It's not a video camera. Unfortunately, it's not one of these things where, hey, did the flock pick up the accident that occurred, right there in front of it? No, it might have grabbed the plates, but it's not going to tell us what happened in the accident. It's not a video camera. It's not like we can open it up and look at it at any time, or it's recording like video, because I think a lot of people might be a little bit more concerned about that. All it is grabbing license plates. And as Michael had mentioned before, if you see an officer and it doesn't look like they're positioned to maybe do speed enforcement, but they're there, they're probably running plates. They're basically just running manually plates as they're going by. They're looking at the stickers on the back of your license plate, and it's saying that it might be expired, and they're looking to see if it's expired. They're looking to see if the owner might have a warrant, things like that. But no, I have no problem with, being transparent on the number of times that we end up actually accessing the data and for what reason.
That's great. And the last piece you sort of rolled into was, the last question that hits my mind is just, is it worth the value that, is it worth the amount that we're paying? It seems like if it can replace responsibilities of our officers, then $2,500 a year isn't terrible. But that's, certainly if you ever came back to us looking for more, that would be the biggest question, is how often are we using this? Is it worth that much?
If we ever got a hit on an Amber Alert and we were able to actually track down that car and grab that, that child, it would be absolutely priceless, and like I said, if that camera system was there, and they were coming into town like they did on King Street, then at least we would have been able to probably figure out who possibly ended up showing that firearm. We might not have been able to charge the person just off what the individual told us, but imagine you're the person that did do that, thinking that you were never going to get caught for doing it, and then all of a sudden we're basically knocking on your door to have a conversation. Hopefully that would deter them from ever doing that again. That would, and if we could charge them, even the better. But I think from the people that I know that have them and have a lot of them, I mean, you're looking at, what does Cranston has? I forget how many, 20-something. Some communities have 34, 40 of them. My friend in Vestavia Hills in Alabama, they have a number of them. And what has it done for them? And it's helped to solve a lot of crimes. It's helped them to be able to investigate things that they would never be able to investigate. And I'm thinking that's our hope, is what it will, it'll do. It'll be used when something comes up and we need it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Hamblin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all three of you for being here tonight. This has been very interesting. My fellow councilors already asked most of the questions. I was really interested in the audit log, if we could make that transparent. I have another question, and the cybersecurity of it. A question about maintenance and repairs. Like, how long does the camera last, and how do you find out if it's not working?
So that's all included as part of the package.
But how do you, like...
They actually periodically will come out and make sure everything's good. If things come up that they have advancements, they actually automatically upgrade the camera. So
So they do automatic system updates for you, and I think...
Yes, so our model, Councilwoman, is a software as a service based model, so safety as a service. So we have a team that is monitoring the maintenance and health of all of our cameras in the field. And if there's an issue, we will notify our customers and offer them a plan for how quickly we will come out and fix it. So that is all included in the leasing agreement, where your department will get access to our software, and then they'll also get access to our team of installers, our permitting team, and our team of technicians to make sure the system is working in the best way it can.
That's great. Do you have an average amount of time that the cameras last?
Yeah. So it depends on the locations, right? So I think after this conversation, the chief and Officer Dimmers will probably go back to our deployment team with their proposed locations, and we'll talk through permitting options and whether or not they want to co-install on power. If we decide to go infrastructure free and go with our pole that is solar powered, then depending on the time of year, the battery will last anywhere from 36 hours to a week, just depending on how much sunlight is available. But when the sunlight hits it, it's constantly charging. And we also have a battery pack that we include as an additional battery on the back of our typical cameras that's also recharged with solar power.
But is there an average length of life for the life expectancy?
So Laura,
for the
if the camera breaks and you can't fix it, you're giving us another one, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
but I'm just like curious, like how often do they break? How often do you have to replace?
It's a great question, and
we don't know yet.
We're
It's
leasing
okay.
it. We're
It doesn't
leasing
matter
it.
if we don't know. It's okay.
No, I don't know. Laura, how long do they usually
Yeah.
last without having, if they're like repair free and?
Yes, and so our cameras very rarely break, right? So if it's due to natural causes, we come out and fix it. If it's due to vandalism, and we do have that small charge. I really am not trying to be cagey on the battery question. It depends on so many different factors, right? So it depends on time of year, amount of sunlight. It depends on weather temperatures, on like cloud coverage and temperature. And so I can provide you maybe some different specifications as a follow-up, but we are making sure that it's working as often as possible for our customers.
Of course you are. I understand that. Thank you. I just, one more quick question about the 30-day, 30-minute retention, 3-minute retention time is like way too little, right? I mean, that's crazy. I was wondering if there were any users out there that did lower it from 30 days to less amount of days, and like the percentage of the customers that have done that, or like, do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very rare. Very few customers actually will lower the retention. We do make it an option for customers. So if your department decides they only need 21 days, and that's what you're comfortable with, if you guys as a town council pass a resolution as part of an agreement with us that says that you want that data retention, we will abide by that and uphold it. But we abide by all laws. It's just very rare for people to differ from that 30-day retention.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for all that information.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Councilor Cormier-Ledger? No. All set. Councilor Chandler?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Great questions by the council. I'm really glad that they're worried about our rights. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you, Officer Demers, Chief, for the presentation. A couple statements, and then I do have a question. So I think all of the reasons you gave us are reasons we should do this. I appreciate that. You mentioned this, and this is what the public needs to understand. We do not have an expectation of privacy in public. So these plates do not belong to people. Anybody can read your plate. Anyone can take a picture of your plate. Jamie could go around taking pictures of all the plates in the parking lot if he'd like to.
I don't, just so you know. I could, but I absolutely don't.
I got a call on that.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted that to
I'm just saying,
I don't believe him, but go ahead, Councilor Chandler.
Right. Okay, so after listening to the questions, I never speak for the council, but I can say, we are fans of free movement, and we are not fans of detaining people by mistake at all. So with that being said, I know the representative from the company said that let me go back a second. You have something called the hot list. I heard you mention that, and she mentioned that, where it gives you plates with people with warrants or anything like that. Well, my concern is, how many of these people are getting pulled over by mistake? And if they are getting pulled over by mistake, the second part of the beef question of that is, how is that getting reported so we know that that's happening? Because, they could read the license plate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get it 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and that guy's got a felony warrant, and all of a sudden, somebody's pulled out a gunpoint and it's a mistake.
So
That's the part I don't like about this.
I'd love to address that. It's a great
Okay.
question. So this is a machine.
Yeah.
We're not. We actually have to confirm this prior to pulling it over. So if we get a plate, we're not just going to automatically throw on the lights, pull out the guns, Well, I would hope not.
Yeah.
But
No, you won't.
yeah. But obviously, if we came into that situation, that would be something that our command staff would discuss and would promptly be addressed.
You'd have to, basically, you're gonna have to confirm it through CJIS. You're gonna have to call, whether it be through your MDTs or calling up to the MEC and basically saying, can you run this particular plate to make sure that the plate, matches. Just like when we had an ALPR on a cruiser
Yeah.
back, a while back, for all the reasons that Officer Demers said, that, the problems with it, we just stopped using it, and it really wasn't connecting to things. But if you got a hit off that, before you could act, you had to take the time to confirm that the plate on the vehicle was exactly the plate that was captured, and that actually it was if it said that the person was wanted for a warrant, then the warrant was technically active and so forth for the owner of the vehicle and everything else.
But lastly, I don't know if the rep has this, is there any mechanism do they keep track of that? I mean, is this going on
Yeah, this is a
30%
great
of the time?
question.
Because you mentioned 70% accuracy once.
So that example, that I think is what's important to bring up, right? Because this is a really big concern, and of course, we have great policies and great customers with strong policies for acting, but of course, in the event a mistake happens, it can be really problematic for the individual that was pulled over, and that response could escalate. When I mentioned the accuracy reading that we provide, that's what we consider an additional data point to help your officers in making the determination about how they respond, right? So like the chief said, they verify that the plate that's provided in the image is the plate that's on the national registry, right? And that's the step that they take. We provide that additional probability metric as a way to help them to know this response, it might not be accurate. You need to double check this as a way to protect the officers there. I think this question is, I think, probably one of the most important questions, and how do we prevent there from being mistakes made? And that's why I think having those updated databases is so important. I have customers tell us all the time that not every department is updating the databases after pulling over stolen vehicles or pulling over stolen plates. And so now that our customers have that information, and they are able to pull over someone and confirm that it isn't stolen or it isn't an active felony warrant, they are then going in the system and updating it and making sure that it's as current as possible. So I think that adds an additional level of protection. I've also heard customers talk about the need to, as part of the response policy, right? Like if someone is pulling over and you're having a solid interaction, like it's easy to confirm that it probably isn't an accurate hit, even after confirming on the hot list. So I think there's a lot of data points that go into how your officers are going to determine their response in that situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilor
Chris.
Chandler. Councilor Pellegrini.
Through the chair, great presentation, and I think that the questions that we've asked here so far tonight have been excellent also. It's answered a lot of questions for me, I know. You said you were going to start with 2 cameras. Are you thinking about other spots to put cameras up at a later date after testing these?
I'm thinking that, you know, we want to see how it works. How does the
How it
whole thing
works,
work out,
yeah.
the installation? I mean, I think Flock will do a good job with all that, but then, does it actually produce anything? Is
Right.
it
Yeah,
worth
you're
it?
gonna
A
wait
cost-benefit
and see.
analysis of what have we been able to do over, let's say, a year?
Uh-huh.
And then if we find that it actually, oh, you know, if Flock helped us with this many cases and so forth, then maybe we end up thinking about possibly, you know, expanding it.
Expanding it, okay. When would you like to implement this if it's all passed?
Probably as soon as all the questions that need to be
How
asked
long
and
will it
answered
take to
are
implement?
done. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
how long will it take to implement?
Probably filling out the paperwork and doing a lease with Flock, and then that, working out a date for them to come out and actually, you know,
Yeah.
put them
Yeah.
up. But also like to let the, you know, probably let the public know that
Sure.
this is what we're doing and so forth.
At least
Okay. Well, it sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Pellegrini. Okay, I think,
We did
I'm
a
not
good
sure
job.
there's any question that hasn't been asked.
If there is,
At
please
least
call
once.
us.
So, Chief
Good luck.
and Officer
Yeah.
Demers, thank you very much. I certainly would support giving this a shot. Let's see what it does for us, and let's see how it helps the department, and then we go from there.
Okay. Well, we'll wait to do anything in case anybody else has any more questions, or you do receive questions from your constituents, you know, that might want to go through you to come back to us. But please, give us a call
Okay.
if there's anything else, so that we can kind of clear the air if there is anything that needs to be cleared up.
Great.
All right.
Chief.
Thank you very
Chief.
much.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Officer
Have a good night.
Demers.
Thank you all.
Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion on project presentation for 121 Grove Street, which is Friendly 40B. And I think representatives are here. Jamie, did you want to do an?
I'll do an intro in 1 second. Do you guys need the HMI?
Yeah.
Are you gonna flip out? Hold that. Thanks, Janice.
I'm really impressed that our town administrator has turned into a technology.
I was trying to get this off my plate and out of my career, but obviously I haven't done a good job at that so far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before the council tonight, I want to make sure I just lead off really fast, and I know the EDC members will have some comments as well. We're about to see a PowerPoint presentation tonight on a project proposal at 120 Grove Street. I'm going to keep this as simple as I can for all of you. It's in the memo. There is legislation for action following. It's not required that anyone has to do it tonight. Just want to make sure. This is what's called a friendly 40B. And so one of the requirements is to file paperwork with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on what's called a LIP, L-I-P, Local Initiative Project. And really what it is, in all the simplest terms, is saying for communities that are over 10% in their Chapter 40B percentage, it allows the town to have a little more flexibility with projects like this. And I won't get ahead of the presenter, but the project you see before you tonight requires a 25% affordable housing cap to it. That's a lot of units of affordable housing. Communities that are under 10% don't get this leisure very often. It would be a much more unique project because, as we all know, there are projects like Madeline Village downtown, which when the town was under 10%, you can override local zoning, and therefore you have no control over any projects or where any of the housing goes. As long as there's open land, they will petition the state on a 40B project, and the town has virtually no say, and there's almost no ability to deny a project. You might be able to mitigate some of it. This is a very different scenario. Because the town has been over its 10% cap by state law, it gives the council and the community and the permitting boards a lot more flexibility to work through this. So the council will see the presentation tonight. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion points, and there's a legislation for action for the council to consider later on. The action is simply to allow the town administrator, myself, to be able to file the paperwork with the Commonwealth at DHCD and I'm sure the proponent will go a little bit more into that. So that's my quick lead-in, Mr. Chairman, and I leave it up to you, and probably pass it over to the presenters, I would assume. Thank you.
Please, and Richie, just introduce
Good evening,
yourself.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Richard Cornetta. I'm the attorney working with Fairfield Residential Development. To my left is Rob Hewitt. He's the vice president and the big cheese in New England for Fairfield. And Janice Hurst is joining us also from Fairfield. And I should point out, we have John Shipe from Shipe Consulting Engineering, who's been a key participant with our development team, both during an earlier project here in Franklin, as well as this current proposal. Fairfield Residential is a development firm. Some of you may be familiar with the name because they recently developed a property here in Franklin down on Dean Avenue, Station 117. About 257 apartment-style units down by the train station in downtown. Fairfield is a national company. They specialize in residential or development, residential development, and they have over the last 35 years developed approximately 100,000 residential units throughout the country. And they have had experience here in Massachusetts. They have a project that they've completed in Stoneham as well as in Chelsea. But most notably, they did Station 117, which we believe was quite a successful project here in Franklin. It is, as I say, 257 units in 6 buildings. And if you haven't gone down there to see it, most of you may have, but it is they're very proud of the project, and I think it's been a good neighbor here in town, and it hasn't created a lot of the concerns that were debated during the year of permitting, but I think it was a success in looking at it from where we stand today. Just to give you an idea of what we've been doing, we've been around with this project for about a year. Last June, we started with the Technical Review Committee here in Franklin, and we started these discussions about the 40B, knowing that the town has exceeded their 10% threshold. I think it's 11.9% or something along those lines. But the concern, obviously, is that there is regardless of what the percentage is that the town currently has, there's a huge demand for housing and affordable housing. That has not gone away, and I think all of us are familiar with a lot of the conversations that have been taking place with the inclusive zoning discussions, the workshops about the downtown area. And so that's the interest that Fairfield brings to the community, because this is their business, and they know there is a demand for housing and affordable housing, and these folks, they do a fair job in what they execute. We've been before the Conservation Commission. We've also been before the Planning Board in October of last year, and there should be letters from both of those parties or those groups commenting about this proposal. Most recently, we went before the downscaled version of this board, the Economic Development Committee. They were kind enough to allow us to come forward and make a presentation to them as well. Why I say this is because, without sounding brash, Fairfield, under the law, under the 40B law, could apply for approval of this project directly to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But I think it's a credit to Rob and his team, and also their relationship with Franklin, that they want to go through this community process. They want to show the community that they want to work with us here to make a very good project, if allowed, that everyone can be proud of. And without stepping on Rob's toes too much with his presentation, I do want to make a couple of highlights about what we're about to hear. There are 3 points I like to make, and the first I think I've already touched on is demand. There is this demand, this huge demand for affordable housing. I mean, I talk to a lot of clients and people in the area, family, friends, that talk about how difficult it is to find housing in town, for whether it's their children coming out of college or whether it's young families that are locating here in Franklin. It is difficult because there just is not, I think, enough available housing, affordable housing in the community. And to Jamie's point, even though the town is above its 10% threshold, I think there is an interest in the community not only to meet the demand for this housing, but also Franklin wants to stay ahead of that 10%, because I think the last thing we all want is someone to come in, a developer, that would be able to just basically muscle the town with a development that they do not want or that doesn't meet the character that we've grown accustomed to here in town. And so this is an opportunity to identify a good developer, a good piece of land, and for you to participate in the shaping of this project that everyone can be proud of. The second point is location. We've managed to locate a piece of property here in Franklin on Grove Street. It is industrially zoned, but we believe from our research that, and I think from the history of the property, that there's a reason why it hasn't been developed as an industrial property. There's a number of characteristics as to this site that prevented it from becoming an industrial property, whether it be wetlands or other items. Because industrial property, they like to put a building on the site and they like it to be just a large box, and whether it's a facility or a transport facility. This particular property does not allow for that, and so I believe that even though this is an industrial property, it's not an industrially desired property, and so I think it presents us with an opportunity here to take a property that is underperforming, not being used its best and highest use, and present it with this type of a proposal. Also, I think the location of the property, because it's in an industrial zone, it gives us a unique opportunity because there's not a lot of residential abutters, direct residential abutters, and that's often a problem when you're introducing a project like this, because everybody, the residents, they don't like no residents like development, let's face it. I mean, nobody likes it. It's necessary, but nobody likes it next to their home. We don't have that situation here. But this property on Grove Street is also located in an area that I think we all can be familiar with, in that it's very close to the downtown and the commercial areas of town. So it's not a property that's being developed on the outskirts of town, which is where you typically see these 40Bs. It's located within an area where the potential residents could actually really patronize a lot of the services and a lot of the commercial offerings that we have here in town. And lastly, about the location, on Grove Street, and I hope the people, if anyone's listening on the residents of Grove Street, I know that there are residential homes on Grove Street, but it's a heavily industrial commercial area, and it runs along a corridor that is parallel to our 140. And so from a traffic perspective, when you introduce a development like this, that's always a big concern, is you're overwhelming an already taxed traffic system. But we have a natural system here where Grove Street, people on Grove Street could actually travel north and south and access the highways without really coming onto the Route 140 corridor, which is, which can get busy during the peak traffic hours. And lastly, and I think this is a good segue to throw it over to Rob and his presentation, is we have an opportunity here to select a developer too, because oftentimes with 40Bs, it's a rare instance where the town knows who the developer is. They come in, they make a proposal. We have a developer here who has a history with Franklin. They've done a successful project. They're very sensitive to the characteristics and the standards that Franklin expects, and they have a good working relationship, I think, with a lot of our town departments in establishing the Station 117 project. So I think for these reasons, I understand that this can be, for some, to be a very controversial proposal, because we're talking about more housing, and there are some that just might just summarily say, we don't need more housing. But unfortunately, we do. And I think if we look at this from that perspective, and I think we have an opportunity here to participate more in shaping what this will be than allowing the 10%, the town's inventory to fall below that 10%, and then be subject to a developer to come forward, that we don't have this opportunity or these characteristics. So with that, sorry, I hope I didn't step on your presentation too much, Rob, but
not at all. Thank you, Rich.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate your time tonight hearing our proposal. What I'd like to briefly show you with my presentation today is the data on our proposed application. I'll let you know some of the things we're considering changing based on all the feedback we've received from the different boards and stops along the way. And then solicit feedback from you and answer any questions that you might have tonight. So without any further ado, we'll jump into it. As Rich mentioned, Fairfield Residential is a national company. We operate as a local group here in, currently we're in Burlington. We're about to move to Braintree in a few weeks. Our local office, we have about 30 people. Fairfield is somewhat unique in that we own our properties, we develop, we also build through our general contracting company. So we have staff in our office that oversees the construction and also staff that oversees the leasing and the operation of the property. So we maintain control from the start to the finish. And we do that because we like to control the quality of what we build. We try to aim at the top of the market. And I think you'll see that we have done that in our property at Dean Avenue, Station 117. Rich mentioned some of our other projects. I won't read the list, but we have a lot going on in Massachusetts. We've been active here since 2001. We're here to stay, or all of us here are local, live and work in the area. Next slide, Janice, thank you. Just a few pictures of Dean Avenue. As Rich mentioned, we're proud of this. We worked long and hard with the town, both during the entitlements, the design, and the construction. And we're very proud of how it turned out. It's fully occupied. It's very active. This is some of the exterior. Next slide. We, in response to the demand from our tenants, we are highly amenitized. So, we have a lot of outdoor living space, like in the upper right-hand picture. This is the clubhouse space around the pool at Dean Avenue. It's about 8,000 square feet of leasing office, fitness center. We're doing more and more work from home space in response to people's demands. And so that next slide, please. Pets are big for everyone, but particularly for renters. Sometimes 40 to 50% of our renters have pets. So we cater to that as well. We have pet wash stations like in the upper right-hand corner. We have dog walks, fenced-in areas, sometimes small dogs and big dogs, so to minimize conflict. Those are very well-received amenities. In fact, I drove by Station 117 before the hearing tonight, and I saw a dog park getting a lot of use, so I was happy to see that. Next slide, Janice. Bikes, again, we always do interior bike storage inside the buildings, try to create an active environment where we can, and that's been well received as well. Next. Yeah, thanks. This is just a picture of the interior of the units. Like I said, we aim it at the top of the market, very nicely appointed apartments. I will point out that our market rate units are exactly the same as the affordable units. There's no differentiation in spec. They're uniformly distributed amongst the property. We're required by the state, and we abide by it, that we have a uniform percentage, 25% of each unit type, evenly distributed amongst the building. So there's no differentiation between those different unit types. Next. We've all heard about the housing crisis in Massachusetts, as the governor likes to describe. We see it in that there's an incredible demand wherever we've developed. We lease up quickly. We talk about renters by necessity and renters by choice. So there's people who can't afford the first house. They're renting with us. They want to live somewhere nice, amongst their peers with high amenities, as a stepping stone to owning the house. Then there's people who don't want to own the house. It's sort of the millennial set. Some folks just prefer to rent. And then we see a lot of empty nesters who are tired of the big house, the kids are gone, but they want to stay in their community, and they don't want to have the maintenance. So we see all all parts of that equation in our developments. Next. Franklin, I know that there's a goal, and I know part of your planning committee will look into creating diverse and affordable housing options. We think this is an opportunity to provide high-quality, diverse, affordable housing. Not just the affordable units, but the actual rest of the units are also more affordable than a single-family home. So it's a diverse set of different unit types. The proposal, we would develop 75 to 83 actual affordable units that are rented at the rents set by the state. We don't set them, we just rent them at those units. We get monitored by the state, and you know, it's not required, but we always will agree to provide those units as affordable in perpetuity. So, you know, deeded affordable units that aren't going to come off the town's affordable housing rolls like sometimes happens. And because it's a rental community, 100% of the units in the development, even if they're not technically affordable rents, get counted on the town's subsidized housing inventory. That's what clicks up to that 10% level. So that's one of the incentives the state has provided to develop rental housing, is that 100% of those units will count towards your goal. And as Rich mentioned, and I described, we see singles, we see young couples, we see empty nesters, we see young families, sort of the beginning and towards the end of life. The middle are busy buying homes and raising their kids. So right as we were starting to look at this development, Franklin came out with the friendly 40B process, trying to get ahead of different developments coming in and to be thoughtful about what they decide to do. We welcome that. We prefer to be collaborative. We like to make these stops and get feedback. In fact, we've taken longer than was required for the 30-day window of review, because we thought it was important to get more feedback so that we're ready when we actually get to the zoning board, if we do, and we've got everybody's feedback impacted. Next. This is our project team. Rich is with me. As we get into more of the design and the technical and the peer reviews with the zoning board, all these folks will come into play. Next. Process, which is you've seen as this friendly 40B process. As part of that, we've made our application, which was required, and then we've made our stops along the way to the Conservation Commission. In fact, we're engaged with them in an ad run process now, which was one of their recommendations, to define the limits of the wetland before we actually finalize the site plan. We stopped at the planning board, got a good comment letter from them in which we've addressed a lot of their comments, which I'll show in a minute. I went to the Economic Development Subcommittee last month. Had a lot of questions and feedback there. And then we've met, of course, with the town department head meeting and got a lot of feedback, which we've incorporated. Here tonight, we're the town council. Depending on the level of support we get, we would submit for site eligibility, which is the next step to DHCD through a LIP. That basically the state looks at our application, make sure we're qualified as a developer, what we propose is in scale with the town, in process with the rules that the state has set for 40Bs, and then they provide the town a 30 or 60-day window to provide additional feedback. If they judge it's acceptable, they would issue a site eligibility letter. At that point, we're allowed to go to the zoning board. They start their process. It typically takes 6 months of hearings on different technical topics. Peer reviewers are hired by the town, funded by us as part of the development process, and we would vet that fully, and then they are the authority that decides yes or no on the development. Thanks, Janice. Next. I think most people are familiar with the site. We're about midway between Route 140 and King and Washington Street on the south, right near the intersection of Beaver and Grove Street. kind of surrounded by that green mass of the state forest. And I'll show a little closer view in a minute. Next. As Rich mentioned, it's 32 acres. There's a single-family home and a few outbuildings, woods, wetlands. We've been to the Franklin Historical Commission. They've confirmed that the existing structures are not historical. I wanted to check that out. There's no sensitive areas in terms of endangered species or habitats or vernal pools. There are wetlands. That's why we're in front of the Conservation Commission. Not in a floodplain or a wellhead protection district. No direct residential abutters. We're abutted by the state forest, power lines, and the substation, electric substation, and Grove Street. And we have talked during the technical review session, the utility infrastructure to support the project is available in Grove Street. Next, thank you. This is a site plan of the 32 acres, not really much to see there. This is kind of inserting our concept site plan, which has already started to evolve since this point, but as I mentioned, the state forest, we've highlighted the trails. There is a trail that comes onto the site. You know, it's noted that it's private property. We would encourage continuing that trail and enhancing trails through the site as part of our development. The power lines along the bottom left, and then the substation, and then industrial uses across the street. Next. So there's a picture of Dean Avenue in the bottom right, just for context, but our proposal is for 300 to 330 apartments. Given some of the site constraints with the wetlands and some of the comments we've heard, you know, we're going to be on the low end of that for sure. A mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The state does require 10% 3 bedrooms. Other than that, we have roughly a split of 50-50, 1 and 2 bedrooms, which was well received at Dean Avenue. As I mentioned, we would restrict the affordable units in perpetuity. We're allowed to give up to 70% local preference to Franklin residents for those affordable units. We have a lottery at the beginning to award those units, and so Franklin residents get to the top. We're always supportive of that. And as I mentioned, 100% of the units count on the SHI limit, which gives some protection down the road for Franklin once the census resets that denominator. As I mentioned, we do a lot of amenities. So we focused on work from home spaces, every project that gets larger, along with our package rooms for Amazon deliveries, which are never ending and hard to deal with that many people. The normal outdoor amenities. We've started to do pickleball and some sort of active things outside. Possibly some public gardens, community gardens has been well received, always the dog parks, as I mentioned. We'll likely end up with at least 3 acres of woods that we'll protect and we'll develop that border the state forest. As I mentioned, we'll continue and enhance the trails. We've got some potential for some ride sharing and a shuttle stop. You know, we're close to the train station. We're about 1.5 miles up to at Forge Park. We're about 2 miles each way to the highway exits. There is, as you know, some nice emerging retail and usable stuff along Grove Street, but you know, Franklin Village is the biggest, nearest large retail center. So you get in your car to drive to all those places. So we always are going to check out the demand and see if we can enhance that for people. Next slide, Janice. We'll have a combination of 4- and 5-story structures as proposed, working with the grades in that site. We have elevators in all buildings, interior bike storage. We try to build in dens and work from home little nooks in a lot of our units, just meeting the demand, and that's been really well received. Mentioned the affordable units are all the same spec, uniformly distributed. So our yield in terms of units per acre is about 10 units per acre, which is a relatively low density. It's less than the 15 units per acre that the state has been promoting for these MBTA communities. Our average unit size is around 1,000 square feet. The 1 bedrooms will be smaller, 700 or 800, and 2 bedrooms would be 11 or 12. Parking, our demand is usually 1.6 spaces per unit to 1.8. We're targeting 1.7, but some of the feedback we've received is, be sure you need that parking before you build it. So we're gonna look at that carefully. Might consider some, areas that we could add parking if needed, but we won't develop them up front, because we don't wanna do more impervious area than we need to. We've been doing more and more electric vehicle charging stations and ability for people to charge their electric vehicles as that demand increases. So we're doing a lot of extra power, thinking ahead to when we keep adding those in the future. Next slide. I mentioned we've got a lot of feedback. This was the site plan and our initial application. Grove Street is on the bottom. We've got the 5 residential buildings and then the clubhouse in the middle. Some of the feedback we're considering, we have to weigh all these things as we pull together our final proposal for the zoning board, but there was some comments on those rear 2 buildings up to the plan right, but the state forest. There's some thought of consolidating those buildings to reduce the massing from the state forest and provide a little more open space. So that was a great suggestion that we're looking at. The building right along Grove Street, that's close, was one of the waivers we had requested. We're required to list our waivers that we will list when we get to the zoning board. That building's closer than the allowed setback. So we've been asked to consider moving that back so it's not as on top of the road. That's definitely in the consideration. We can reduce the building height significantly by making it a flat roof system rather than a pitched roof. We've done that successfully recently in Milford, and that turned out very nicely to help reduce the scale. We're also going to 4 stories on some of the buildings, working into the grade to reduce the massing. This site is so large, 32 acres, those rear buildings are going to be way out of the distance of the road, but doesn't read that way from the plan, obviously. We may incorporate the clubhouse into one of the buildings just to reduce the overall number of buildings and impervious area. We're considering a ride-sharing kind of shuttle pickup stop in one of the central areas where it'd be convenient for folks. We've been asked to conduct a formal traffic study, which we will do. It's been 6 particular intersections have been suggested. That's where we'll start with. That'll be peer-reviewed with the zoning board, so we'll work with them. We were asked to file an ANRAD to define the limits of the wetland. We're in the middle of that process now. That's been helpful. They asked to consider reducing the parking. We're looking at that. We want to make sure we have adequate parking for people, but we don't want to have more than is needed, because that would be wasteful. We've already incorporated the fire department comments. They're okay with the building type and size and height, but they wanted 360-degree access around all the buildings, which we've accommodated. We've added some additional EV charging stations already. We've enhanced the connectivity of the state forest. One of the comments was helping to provide access to this multi-use trail that's planned for pedestrians and bikes along Grove Street, possibly connecting down to the rail trail, which is a win-win for us, enhances it for our residents, and provides some good feedback for the town. This was a concept rendering. This is one of our other projects, just to show kind of this 4 or 5 story split. This one has a pitched roof, so it's taller than we would propose if we went to a flat roof. Flat roofs are more expensive, a little more complicated, but they are also can reduce the overall density of the site and make the buildings feel smaller. And also we can put most of the mechanical equipment up, shielded on top, and it kind of cleans up the outside. Next, Janice. This is just an illustration, with a pitched roof, you're looking at a 60-foot building. We can get down to 52 feet with a flat roof in that 5-story portion. Next. Some of the benefits we see for the residents: the large parcel, open space, adjacent to the state forest. All the amenities I've described that we will provide, great access to 495, the commuter rail station at Forge Park, which is huge for us. We always like to be near a train station, and pretty convenient to shopping, Franklin Village, and then some of the local uses along the way. That's just a picture showing, all those uses. Next. As I said, great access to the forest, potentially to the rail trail along Grove Street. So we're excited about exploring that. Go ahead. Thanks. So some of the early concepts for that mixed-use path along Grove Street, which we would provide access and land to do, was shown on the right with the bike and the rail trail. That we got that from the town department. I think benefits overall to the public and to the town of Franklin, significantly increased tax assessment over the existing use. Our projections are probably $800,000 per year in taxes once we're fully stabilized and all rented up, versus about $13,000 today as the basically a single family on that large parcel. There is ample infrastructure in Grove Street. Of course, we'll pay our connection fees and any improvements needed, but there's no big improvements needed to service this development. No adverse impacts on adjacent residential neighbors, since there aren't any, and positive impacts for the local retailers. I've listed some that we've discovered as we've been exploring the site. Traffic, as Rich mentioned, is concentrated away from downtown Franklin, at least for commuting and for kind of local stops on the retail. The potential connector will be a nice benefit. We're happy to contribute to that as part of our mitigation that will be established with the zoning board. And of course, we have to mitigate any traffic impacts. Our initial review, and we're not going to overwhelm any intersections. There'll probably be some retiming of some of the signals to accommodate the different levels of traffic, and that would be on our ticket. Next. Obviously, this contributes towards the state's need for affordable housing. It would increase the town's SHI. We had a presentation at the Economic Development Subcommittee. It looks like after the next census, at least the town planner's projection was that the town would be, I think, 10.5%. But in 2030, in 7 years, looks like there'll be some, if nothing else was developed, town would drop below 10% and be at the mercy of those other developers that haven't been within the town. So also, as I mentioned, will contribute towards the trail, fees as part of our building permits. Next slide. As I mentioned, we'll do a traffic study and mitigate any impacts. There could be some benefits to the town there. Next. No impacts to the abutters. Next. Other things we'll be studying during the zoning board process: lighting, so there's no off-site light spill, recycling, trash will all be appropriately handled, just like we did at Dean Avenue. We'll go through extensive design review of our plans and all the engineering as part of the zoning board process, and they would determine appropriate mitigation. And as I mentioned, limit the exposure for down the road exposure. Next. We've got a limited number of waivers. Obviously, we need a waiver for residential in this industrial zone. Doesn't allow residential. As Rich alluded to, the site's been marketed for a number of years as an industrial property. Hasn't really got many takers, mostly because of topography, not an ability to build a big kind of industrial, at least from what I understand from talking to industrial users. We can comply with most of the current dimensional requirements. The one setback I mentioned, we're probably going to be able to meet by moving that one building along the road back. Zoning only allows 3 stories. We would like to do 4 and 5. That's most effective in terms of both for costs and efficiency and reducing impervious area. We'll fully vet that whole design process with the zoning board. Franklin Fire Department did confirm they can service those buildings at that height. We'll have some minor waivers for retaining walls. And as I mentioned, we're working with the Conservation Commission. As part of the 40B, you don't have to abide by the local wetland bylaw. You have to abide by the state wetland bylaw, but we're working to include the local bylaw as much as we can. Next slide. So obviously we're here tonight. We've been to all the other stops that were required by the town's process. Depending on the outcome tonight, our next step would be to submit our application to the state for site eligibility. If they come back positive, and we expect that they would, based on our experience with them and our proposal, then that would allow us to go to the zoning board and start the public hearing process. We think that kind of from here to the end of that process, probably 9 or 12 months based on our experience. So lots of opportunities for additional comments and vetting and checking. Next. In closing, we think this project will provide diverse and affordable rental housing in Franklin. Will provide local preference to Franklin residents. 100% of the units add to your HI. It's a very convenient location for residents. It's close to the train station, highway, and shopping. We've got all the required public infrastructure in place. Less traffic impact than a development downtown. We have opportunities for mitigation for off-site improvements like the multi-use path. The permitting process with the zoning board will allow for a full and extensive vetting of pros and cons, including peer reviews that we'll pay for. And the 40B process to date and moving through the zoning board allows us a lot of opportunity to get feedback, address that feedback, make the project better, and really try to collaborate so that we end up with a development that we're all proud of. And again, we're excited because we've developed in Franklin before and we have confidence in the town. We had a great relationship, and we'd like to repeat it again with a new project. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we're interested in your feedback.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, questions from the council. I think I'll start with the EDC group because they have the most information. Councilor Hamblin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here again. It's good to see you. And I think it's worth noting that this is the first time anyone has had to go through our new 40B process. Mm-hmm. And so I thank you for going through all of the steps that we have set up for you so that you do get as much feedback as possible. Mm-hmm. And that I think the fact that you're working with a conservation agent to work on the wetland study is really important. It shows that you want to work with us. Also, I started to write down the things that I think we said just at the Economic Development Subcommittee that you put up on your slide. So it's obvious that you're listening to us, lowering the amounts of units, lowering the height, the less density, moving that front building back a little bit. That setback, I think, was a big issue with a lot of people. I think it's important to note that the density you say is 10 units per acre. Right, so it is a lot less dense than I think people would imagine that would be there. And as we do save a lot of open space, we do have to make sure that we allow for new growth so that our budget, we can pay for our things that we want here in town as well. And so there's this big balance that we have to think about all the time when we're going through these kind of processes. I did think of one other thing. I think maybe Councilor Frangillo and I were speaking with the chair after you were here, I think, and we thought maybe a sidewalk to Beaver Street Playground to connect the kids that might be there to the playground that's around that area and to make it safer. That was one of the things that I think we all think is really important because it goes to the recreation department that's right on Beaver Street as well. Did you have that down or did you forget about that?
No, it's there.
So I wanted to make sure we got that out in the open. And also, it's good that the fire department is okay with the height of these things. You know, we're buying a new tower truck, and we need donations to afford to pay for. Like Jamie's looking at me like. I just ask for big stuff. You know, that's my job. Is I ask for all the big things that would be really super. But seriously. I feel like this is it can be really controversial, but you are working with us and you are paying attention. I feel like you've listened to some of the planning board comments as well. Another question I have is you said that you keep your properties, but haven't you sold Station 117?
We did, yeah. This last end of the cycle, like, things were too good to pass up, so our properties are always desired by kind of institutional investors, so we sell to pension funds. They like to hold it, you know, for 10 or 20 years, just get that steady cash.
Well, then I guess you don't, I mean, you might plan on keeping this one, but you might sell it. Is that?
Yeah, we would hold it for a time, but there's always the opportunity to sell. What we found is that people who are buying our product are similar institutional investors, so they're keeping up the property, they're playing by the rules. We haven't had any problems when we've transferred it. Yeah, it was just, the market was just too good to pass up the last couple of years, and that has since evaporated, obviously.
I think the only concern we would have would be that it would, if it does get sold, it would be sold to someone who would keep track of the housing, the SHI, you know, the affordable housing units in that area, like you would do.
Yeah, and that's one reason to deed them in perpetuity, so that if it does transfer hands, that's always there for you.
Right. I just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. So.
And we're used to the zoning board putting some conditions in if things are transferred, they have some approval rights and need to make sure that they abide by all the permits. I'd be shocked if that wasn't part of conditions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let my fellow councilors ask their questions. I'm sure there's a lot more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hamlin. Councilor Frangillo.
Sure. I love Councilor Hamlin because she saves me my voice. She took away half my spiel. That's good. I just wanted to reiterate the comments that they've heard, but I still feel pretty similarly, and I'll make them concise. Reasons that I love this project: any opportunity to get more revenue out of a parcel. It's something that had been there, sitting there for a while, wasn't being made better use of, made more productive industrially, and we're going to be able to just way increase the value to town. That's a good thing without adding to any infrastructure liabilities. So that's a good thing. Adding housing, affordable, diverse housing options that we know that we need, and it helps us attract and retain businesses who want to come to town. All good things. And really the biggest detractor still is the location, right? That it's in a space where you can't go anywhere without the use of a car, right? Traffic is not a product of people, it's a product of people in cars. And so if we put a unit like this away from our businesses and the places that we want them to go, our public services and all that, if we push it away from them, then they're only going to be adding to our traffic, and that's too bad. And so, to that point, my biggest ask, if we do move forward, and what I love, is exactly what's been discussed. I love your willingness to help us out with that multi-use path down Grove Street, a raised, protected, wide multi-use path would really make that a much safer space for people to access the SNET and get down Grove Street in general. And the other opportunity would be down Beaver, right? If you're ever going to, if anyone were to ever bike from your unit to our downtown, we would need to improve the safety of the end of Beaver Street, or your end of Beaver Street. Those are my main comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Sheridan?
Yeah,
all set?
covered, yeah.
Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did hear this whole presentation at the EDC level. There were a few things that came up. One of the things that was mentioned, I don't think the numbers changed. And correct me if I'm wrong, you said 43, expected about 43?
Yeah, we did a preliminary.
Student age?
Yeah, preliminary estimates were about 43 school-age children.
And you estimate, if I remember correctly, about $800,000 benefit
Revenue,
to the community.
correct.
And if I recall from our conversation, it actually works out that with 43 students in that facility, that $800,000 is offset by $675,000, which is what would be the cost to have 43 kids in our school system. So, I mean, it's really not a big benefit there from that perspective. My other thing that I'm wondering too is, as a solely heavy or high density housing development, one of the things, of course, I'm going to bring up the same point I did last time at the EDC level. This is an industrial zone property. I don't necessarily like seeing part of our industrial zone going residential, just like it did against our will over on the Bellingham side of town. But one of the things that kind of baffles me from a development perspective is many of the communities, even the ones that are being built in and around Charlestown and Everett and Somerville, they're kind of gearing their development around kind of a village style appeal, where it's got not only the amenities that the people who live there won't use, but it might have like a market, or it might have some kind of recreational thing built into it, and it might even have like a working type building, or someplace where a small business might want to set up and put up shop, where people might be able to work locally, right, just within the residential neighborhood. But this doesn't contain any of that. And the other thing I'm wondering too is, as part of your project, you don't really seem to include a lot of green initiatives. I don't really see any kind of solar or anything that would kind of offset the utility costs that would be absorbed. You'd basically be purposing the town's utilities, the water, the sewer, and the electricity, but nothing yet in my presentation that I've seen that would say solar panels that you could put on the roof that could offset the cost of what's going to be, because the town of Franklin does support the stretch code, that would require future electrification for all electrical vehicles that would eventually be on that property. How would you offset that, and so on and so forth? I don't really see much of that presentation.
Yeah, I probably didn't add that in, and I should have. We obviously were used to the stretch code, which ends up being pretty highly efficient in our buildings. Most of that energy savings gets passed on to the residents. In some locations, we have been doing, solar ready for the roofs. We're starting to explore that. We don't have any developments where we added solar panels yet, but we're planning for that. Our project in Chelsea, we have wiring up to the roof for future solar when it makes sense for us. So we're always looking for good ideas like that, and so we'll definitely focus on that.
But ultimately, you're going to be purposing all the utilities straight from the town, and no real green initiatives towards property built in at the moment.
At this point, that is
okay. And I have to follow with Councilor Hamlin and Frangillo in regards to it's not in the best location. A, it's an industrial, and B, you're in a busy Grove Street neighborhood where it's gonna have already a ridiculous amount of traffic associated with trucks. I do know you've got Kenwood Circle right there, which is a couple of blocks away. You have many of our other industrial properties that are over there, where it's gonna add to the traffic. But one of the comments that was made at our EDC meeting was walkability. You know, the ability for the residents to be able to get from where they are to where our amenities are, which is mainly downtown. And it's this location, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the project's good. It's just like the 117 stations, but its general location is really, really, as far as a residential project is concerned, is off the beaten path. It's a tough spot to sell that size of a development for residential and not expect it to have some kind of tremendous impact on that neighborhood and the neighbors. Councilor Frangel's not wrong. This is really going to be where a person has to drive. They have to drive up to the train station, they have to drive to the parks, they have to drive to the grocery stores, they have to drive to get to the Rome restaurant downtown. You know, everything's gonna require them transporting themselves. And I just don't know how you could mitigate that significantly with this many residents. So, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for taking so much time. I'm pretty much done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Councilor DeLorco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think your 117 project come out awesome, but have you done a traffic study on Grove Street?
We haven't done a formal traffic study, no.
Okay, so I just want to let you know that I am a truck driver, and I did deliver oil on 121 Grove Street the other day, and I put 150 gallons in, which takes about 11 minutes. There was 8 tractor trailers that went by me when I was there. 8. I personally think Grove Street should be all industrial, not just think the whole thing should be. I'm concerned about Beaver Street. There's a lot of traffic there now. What are you gonna do to, I mean, when you dump all these other people on there, it's gonna back up all the way to the end of Beaver Street. I mean, it's almost there now.
It's on my sheet, yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the issues I had. And your affordable rent, do you know how much that would be?
Yeah, they're set by the state. Currently, affordable rents, I think, range from 1,800 to 2,300.
1,800 to 2,300. That's affordable.
They go up or down every year. We just rent at the rates we're allowed.
And that's for 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom?
Yeah, 1 bedroom is at
like
1,800. 2 bedrooms are 23 or 24, I think, currently.
To me, that's not affordable, but that's just my personal opinion. And how many local contractors do you use when you build the place?
It's a great question. You know, we get better pricing usually from local contractors. We just have to make sure they're qualified, and we bid to anybody who's qualified.
So everything's a bid process?
Yes.
So you're saying you don't have your own? Like your company doesn't have?
We're our own general contractor, so
Right.
we'll have a staff of 4 to 8 professionals on the site. But
Okay.
we'll hire all the sub-consultants.
Okay. And did you hire a lot down at 117, do you know?
I don't know any details, but I can find out for you.
Okay. Okay, all right.
I'll set Councilor DeLorco. Councilor Chandler.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I always like to say something nice first, so to Councilor Jones's point about the industrial versus the apartments, I learned from a gentleman in the audience tonight, who I respect his opinion, that not a lot of industrial would be able to go into that spot because of the wetlands and everything. So you do have one positive there. And next, Mr. Canetta opened the door for this question. Why at 117 do you have no affordable units, but here now you have 25%?
Yeah,
How does that work?
Station 117 was a rezone through the town, and so there was no ask for affordable units at that time. So from our perspective, you know, we lose money on the affordable units and we have to gain it on the others. So we would love to do a variety of units and prices and just not have that affordable complexity. But then we did, we got a special permit from the planning board for that project as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chandler, if I could.
Oh, sure.
I was also.
Certainly, Rich.
I was involved in that project.
Yeah.
And the expense to clean that project, it was environmentally was a mess. And so that project was very expensive to clean, and I think that was in consideration. I think Jamie's former predecessor, Mr. Nutting, was involved, and I credit him for recognizing that that was an issue. So there were a lot of mitigation measures that went into that project to make that happen. So that might clarify.
I'm well aware of that building that you knocked down. That had to be, okay, I appreciate that, that information. And I have to agree with Councilor DeLoco. The biggest concern I had about the whole traffic study was that Beaver Street light. Because it backs up, all of a sudden you got the tracks there now, you know, and there's a lot of sports there, and I mean, say 350 apartments, I mean, it's a lot of cars, right? But I'm really interested to see that part of the traffic study, and that concerns me the most, is that light at Beaver Street. Let's see, what else do we have here? Mr. Taberner, is it true that the zoning is for multifamily or apartment are not allowed in an industrial district? So this isn't even allowed there?
That's correct. They're going with a 40B.
Yeah.
For that reason, it would be allowed if the town wants to see that. But multifamily is not an allowed use in an industrial zone.
So no matter what we say tonight, they still need to get that waiver? Or is it what we say gives them the waiver?
Well, the ZBA would have to approve whether you like the project and vote to have the papers filled out and sent to the state, or you don't. The ZBA is the decision maker on whether they get a comprehensive permit or not. Okay, so
we're not even in the loop.
No, well, you're in the loop. I mean, the fact of the matter is, your support means a lot. Whether you support something or you're dead set against it, it means an awful lot. You're representing the town, and that's what your job is right now, to do what's best for the town. So, and it is a friendly 40B. They don't have to actually go with the friendly 40B process. They could go directly to ZBA, could have done that months ago, and try to get through the ZBA process in that way. But it's a lot harder for them to do so, to go that way.
Yeah. I mean, we do appoint them, so, but,
Yeah, that's a good point, Councilor Chandler.
let me bring up, sorry to take so
No,
long.
that's
This-
okay.
this-
Go
This is
ahead.
very important.
Yes,
This
it
is a
is.
very important issue with the apartments in this town. The parking. I know you hear from a bubble in this town how they don't want any parking. People want parking. They need parking. That's just my opinion. 1.2 spots. I don't, you know, it's not gonna cut it. I know you didn't use that number, but.
Yeah, we would never do less than we've proven to ourselves and other developments that is adequate, because if there's not enough parking spots, someone's gonna go rent at a place where there are enough parking spots.
Right.
I just don't wanna build more parking and disturb more land than we have to, so you're right, it's a balance, and
I mean,
there's a lot
we've
of
already
people-
heard from the people that don't want parking, that people can't ride bikes from there, so we need parking, is my opinion. I just need to get this out to people, okay? No offense, sir. Let me just finish up here, please.
Let the developers decide how much parking we need.
No, I gave them my opinion,
Okay.
which doesn't mean much here. So in closing, I feel you have the votes for your friendly bee, but I need to face the public right now, and they are not happy with apartments. And I think it's gonna be a big issue in the fall. And I've just seen enough. But I appreciate everything you're doing. You've done a great job so far, with all due respect. So, but I'm gonna leave it at that, that I just can't support more apartments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chandler. Councilor Cormier-Ledger.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been very quiet tonight on purpose. And thank you for the presentation and for all of the extra steps with this application, because as was noted, you could have cut some corners and not gone before so many groups. To Councilor Hamblin's point, I think it's perhaps understandable, but also disappointing when a large developer sells, because we are looking for community partners. We're looking for people that are going to not just build, but also stay and contribute to the community, and not just kind of use us as a way to make money and then move on to the next big project, if you know what I'm saying. So I do appreciate that you said that. The new management company over there, from what I understand, all of the rents have gone up. There's 2-month required in writing that the tenants have to give in order to, get out of their lease and go on. So there's some challenges over there at that complex right now, which is unfortunate, because you talk about apartments being a path to home ownership, and it's kind of exactly the opposite. We have people in town that want to get out of renting and go into a small home or a condo, but there's a bottleneck down there at the bottom. I'm not particularly seeing a ton of people from Franklin that are looking for a high rent situation. They're looking for a reasonable house to move into. And if we were going to talk about affordable housing, to me, we'd be talking more like Palomino Drive, or, an area where we could actually build smaller, more affordable homes with deed restrictions on them to help people, not just more expensive apartments. That being said, apartment buildings tend to be more transient. We're not talking about people that are truly rooting here in Franklin. They may, stay a year or two because of a job, but they're going to move on. And I think that's part of the overall concern with just more apartments in general, on top of parking, on top of the location. As a developer, though, have you guys thought about contributing back to the towns where you build? Like, do you contribute to any nonprofits? Do you contribute to the towns that are doing projects like Councilor Hamblin mentioned? We'd love to have the Fairfield fire truck, right? Like, there's just so many. Well, I'm being serious, right? I mean, you stand to make, considerable millions of dollars building this development, right? You're in business to make money, but our job to our, to our residents here is, okay, we have this gigantic budget to try to make work with a long list of things and a lot of hands. So I think if you want to be a community partner and go forward, you'd have a lot more respect from a lot of people here and in town if they were able to say, oh, okay, you not only helped with some sidewalks or some parks, or helped the fire department, or helped, my God, even the Little League or the football team needs some help, right? Like, and I've said that to other corporate sponsors that have come before us, but please just kind of keep that in mind as you go forward. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cormier-Ledger. Councilor Pellegrini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as I don't start coughing, excuse me. All I'm hearing from the people out on the streets is that we have too many apartments in this town now. We don't need more apartments. And I have to agree with them. You said that 117 down there on Dean Avenue is all filled. It is? I'm very unhappy to hear that you sold it, and that people come forward to us and they want to pass something, they get it passed, and then they turn around and sell it. And I know a few of the other councils have said the same. I don't like that either, because I don't think that's showing that you really care about the town. You're caring just about your own pocket, and I'm not for that at all. Lived in Franklin all of my life, and to see the way some of the things are going on now, it's bad. It really is. And in one of your things over here, it said ample water. I never can understand that. Ample water, we have water bans, and I know that it's from the state, you know, what we're allowed to take for water and whatever. But how can we keep building and doing all of this when we don't have ample water, as far as I'm concerned? All right? I'm very concerned about Beaver Street with the light, the traffic that's going to be brought down that way. It's not going to work. I thought we were going to be voting a zoning change, Brian, and we have nothing to do with a zoning change for this, because right now it's industrial, correct?
Go ahead, Brian.
A 40B does not, it does not really matter the underlying zoning in an area, okay? So that, it's just like any other 40B that's come to town. It doesn't, you just put that aside, and they deal with what the parcel actually is in the adjacent community, adjacent neighborhoods and things of that nature. But the zoning does not matter on a 40B. So.
And that's too bad. That's too bad, because then we would be able to say yes or no according to zoning. Right now, all that land is industrial, correct? So, let's see here. Select. We're over the 10% for affordable housing in town. So I do a pros and cons list whenever I'm looking at this. And when I see that we're already over 10%, we don't have to push for affordable housing, because, again, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think they come out to being affordable. I heard you from out there when you said how much rents were. I can't believe it. People can't afford it. That's what I'm hearing again out on the street. But you don't have anything to do with that now, because you sold Dean Avenue. And it's going up, and it's going up, and it's just not fair. Same with Westerly, down off of, what is it, Washington? Going into Bellingham.
140.
Yeah, that keeps going up for the people too. I want to see some actual affordable housing units, so that people can move into them, live there, and not worry about the next month or the month after that, what it's going to be. It's going to be too expensive for them, and they're going to be leaving. I'm trying to see some things here that I had. And you keep comparing this project to Dean Avenue. I've talked to people on Dean Avenue, and they're not happy with that project that's down there. They just, the people are not happy that are living there. And if they had the, whatever, to get out of there, they would. You know, I don't know how we're doing over here across the street with these apartments. Have they, through you, Mr. Chair, do we know if they've started to rent across the street?
They're not done yet.
They're not, well, no, they're not done yet, but I didn't know if they had an office that was taking some applications or anything.
No, I don't think so.
No. All right, mixed feelings, I'm sorry to say, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pellegrini. I have a couple of comments, and I guess I understand and respect all of my fellow councilors and their opinions, and I think they've asked a lot of very good questions, some of which we really don't have answers to yet. You know, the delineation of the wetlands, which is ultimately going to decide really how many units you're going to be able to put there. The 300 number is a number that, you know, I think is high. Again, that's my opinion. I also think that the 65 to 70 foot I have an issue with that. Those are really my two biggest issues, is number of units and the height of the building. And I understand the traffic, and again, we don't have a traffic report yet. I just think there's enough unknowns here that I'd really like to have answers to before I decided which way, how I felt totally about the project. The positive things, I do think the friendly 40B puts the council really in the zoning board of appeals in control of who builds what in the town. And that's something we should not lose sight of, because if we were to drop below the 10%, we don't have control anymore. It's all state. And there are many bum contractors out there. And you have no control over who that is that's coming in and what they're building. So I believe that having this affordable, that you can at least work with the contractor to come up with solutions to, or ideas to fix concerns of counselors and residents, is a very important piece of this. I think if this were to go forward, pick the number. Only because I don't like the number 3, I'm gonna pick 295 and just say, if that were the number, I look at our SHI and say, for the next 10 to 15 years, we don't have to worry about it. Right. And we then control 40B's building in town, and what contractor comes into town to build. And I'm just concerned that I don't have enough good information to make an intelligent decision on what's before us this evening. Again, that's just me. Is there anyone in the audience that, Jamie?
Yeah. You can go to the audience first. I just wanted to wrap up with a couple of closing comments.
I'll let you.
Thank you.
I'll let you wrap up in a minute. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to, that has a comment? Sure, please, just name and address, please.
Sure. Joe Halligan, 1 Newell Drive. First, I'd like to thank you for the appointment tonight. It's great to be back in action.
Great to have you back.
A little hiatus there for a while, but it's great to be back. I'd like to just address a couple of comments first, and then I'll go back a little bit in history. I'm familiar with the property. At the EDC meeting, I had mentioned Andrew Basanti at the time, God bless his soul, that came to me to purchase this property. And the purchase price was still a lot of money, but about $2 million for 30-something acres of land. And I says, that's just too good to be true. I says, you can't buy industrial land like that for that kind of money. Upon doing my research on the property, because I'm more of a commercial developer, I looked at it, and he's like, oh, we'll put a big marijuana facility in there, we can put like an Amazon in there. I looked at the property, it's not feasible for any of that. You might be able to squeeze in a small mom and pop, dirt road, paved road, little, mechanic shops, industrial, but that, you're never gonna put a big box store in there. It's just, the wetlands cut it up. Where these people came into play is they found that they can weave around that stuff and make it work in smaller buildings to make it a residential. It will never be developed as industrial. You're all Franklinites. You can go back 15, 20 years. This exact project was brought in front of the ZBA for a 40B, came that close to be approved. There was a discrepancy between the owner and the buyer, and it fell apart with lawyers and everything. It almost was. It was right there. It was in front of the ZBA, 2 meetings, ready to go, and it fell apart. So this idea has been lingering a long time for that parcel of property. Nothing new. So I just want to give a little history on the land. Traffic, absolutely a great concern. But where in Franklin is it not a concern? Where is it no traffic anywhere to put something like this?
So add more? So add more, Joe?
No. So I'm just touching on that. There is no traffic. But if you can remember, and about 2 years ago, before the election, Jamie and I had conversation, we had conversation with others. There was the Massachusetts Affordability Act coming to Franklin, where you needed a full vote of the planning board and a full vote of the council to join together to go to the state so that we could become now eligible for funds and grants to the state, similar to what got paid on Grove Street. I can tell you for a fact that that night on the planning board, it was dead on arrival. Not one planning board member wanted to talk about affordable housing. I, Joe Halligan, within an hour, had great conversation with my members, and I got them to vote unanimous to move this forward. So then it was moved forward to Jamie, you people voted. I stuck my neck out with my members real strong that night to get an affordable setup going in Franklin, because I really believe I'm an advocate of affordable housing. I did that before the election, prior to Fairfield even being interested in this property. So what I'm finding though is, and I watched all the meetings. I've been to EDCs, I've watched conservation, everybody everywhere, even ZBA, there's one going up on Pleasant Street, neighbors are coming out, we need affordable housing, we need affordable, but not my backyard. That seems to be the thing going around town. Nobody wants to talk about it at the end when the shovel's ready to go in the ground. However, we broadcast that we are open to affordable housing, we need affordable housing, but when it comes to putting that shovel in the ground, we're close. Everybody, it seems to be finding an excuse why not to build it? Not, wow, we're going to add 60, 70 affordable homes to the town of Franklin. Well, I watched the planning board the other night with the inclusionary zoning. You need 1 unit for every 10 is affordable. You would need 80 projects around the center of town to almost get about 80 affordable units. The project across the street is 104. At the time, the town wasn't asking for affordable. You would need 8 of those sprinkled around town to get 70, 80 units. Do you really want that? This is an area, yes, it's out of town. I live out of town. I don't want to live downtown. I don't want to hear the train. I don't want to hear the horn going off. I enjoy living out in the nature. This is an option for other residents that want to live in Franklin. Some people don't want to live downtown. Some like that state forest, the earthy, crunchy, walk the dogs, that's a different lifestyle. It's not to be compared to the downtown inclusionary zoning. It's a totally different lifestyle. Again, walking paths, dogs, stuff like that. Again, addressing the traffic, we have traffic everywhere. So I think what I ran my campaign on, which wasn't successful, was affordable housing. I says I want to see the affordable housing. You can read it right, it's still in the Observer and the newspapers. I would like to get it elected again to see this affordable housing followed through. I'm glad now I'm on the master plan, maybe that'll touch a little bit on it. But we really need affordable housing. We don't want to say we do, but we do. We don't want development, but we need it. And the dirty secret is we're losing over 100 kids a year in the school system. No one wants to talk about it. But they're all talking about, this is going to bring 45 kids into the school system. Who's to say some of those 45 aren't people living in Franklin who can't afford a home anymore and want to live in a lifestyle like that? Maybe half of those 45 are already in the school system that are absorbing that 20,000 a student. That doesn't mean 45 people are moving in from out of town immediately with 45 more kids. Another dirty secret no one talks about is Franklin lost population last year. Hard to believe. We're down in bodies. These are the things no one talks about, but it's the truth. I like the project sitting out there because of where it is. Not downtown, not clogging up the main streets, the main arteries. And again, I respect Colby 100%. I love the direction he's going. But not everybody. We have 36,000 residents in town. Not all of those people live within walking distance of town. So I have to drive. So do the other people. We can't have a carless society because of the size of the town. We're always going to have automobiles involved. I'm sure these individuals here will do their best on traffic studies, and a positive vote tonight would allow them to go that next step to the ZBA, where some of you members could go to a ZBA meeting and throw those ideas in and have the ZBA make that part of the condition. Tonight, you really can't make it a condition. This is all, sounds good, let it go. Like the conversation was, they have the right to just go right to ZBA. They want to work with you. So maybe if there was some kind of little committee that wanted to go to ZBA and incorporate the ideas you people have, those people can put that in the decision. I don't believe that can be made into a decision tonight. But again, I appreciate affordability, I support it, and a few people on the board ran their campaign on affordability. A vote tonight is going to show the town of Franklin, does Franklin support affordable housing? If not, where is it? I've heard the meetings, oh, we don't want triple deckers on 140. Well, that throws that out the door. We don't want this, we don't want that. What do we want if we want affordable housing? It's got to go somewhere. Start there and move your way in. At the last EDC meeting, it was talked about that by 2030, we're going to be below 10%. Like Robert just spoke, it's going to take 12 to 14 months just to get to the state, 3 to 4 year development. We're touching 2030. You have control of what you can see now, you might not have control. In 2030, it's here tomorrow. So, as Tom had mentioned, this puts us a little above that 10% for the next 10, 15 years. But on my closing statement, if they were to bring 70 to 80 affordable houses in Franklin, I don't think any of us in this room will live long enough to ever see 80 units built in Franklin, no matter where it's built, that would allow housing in Franklin for the affordables. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the council. Incredible questions, great dialogue. I appreciate everybody. I just want to offer just a couple clarifying points real quick. Just so the folks watching at home, it's not about misinformation or miscalculation. A lot of what's described here tonight is a lot of feelings and I think a lot of emotions from a lot of people we all hear of and talk to in town. So on the water issue, Councilor Pellegrini mentioned it. The water ban and the water issues in your lawn, if you're listening at home, has nothing to do with this. Like, it's just like one of these things that I have to say, it's not just the state water ban on Fridays, it's our water management permit. And I understand, I don't want to go into any details on it, I just want people to understand, no, there is not water everywhere, but we have water and we have enough water for the quality of life in the town. And I understand Facebook tells us otherwise, but Facebook is wrong. We have plenty of water in our water permit. I'm sorry, Facebook, you're wrong. The issue about flipping projects. There are a lot of local developers who grew up and were raised in Franklin who flip projects. Flipping projects is a market-based decision. It's part of a free market. If we want liberties, we have to recognize that maybe certain people are not what we want, but beggars can't be choosers. And that when local developers flip projects, we oftentimes go, oh, I wish they hadn't. But ultimately, in the kind of society we have, that's what business does, whether you're local, from in town, in state, or out of town. Flipping projects is a part of it, no matter who you are and where you grow up. It's a part of the economy. Regarding the location, I think Joe and many other people have dealt with that. It is a very struggling site to make better on an industrial property. This may be one of the best uses, and it may not be the scale of the project that's there, but at least from an industrial standpoint, looking at the map, you're right around the corner from Chilson Beach. There is some amenity. I think somebody mentioned the playground a little while ago. I think we are looking at Grove. As everyone knows, from Washington to Kenwood, we're building the bike lane. We have the parking lot at the corner of Beaver Street and Grove Street. I just encourage people after this meeting, when you're driving around, just think about it as you drive up and down Grove and try to picture what potentially could be. 200 acres of open space, affordability. I'm going to cite the guy in the mayoral candidate in New York City. The rent is too damn bleeping high. Okay? I mean, 1,800 to 2,300 really stinks. I hate to break the news to you. The state is setting these rates because this is actually what's affordable relative to the affluence of Massachusetts. Very hard truth. I'll throw in what Joe just said, things people don't want to talk about. The reality of the situation is most people in affordability is in the eye of the beholder. You may have the ability to pay, you may have the money to pay, but you don't like it. I never liked sending in a rent check. It was awful. You know, and if I told Kobe today probably what I had for rent in Cambridge back when I lived there, he'd probably faint, right? Every single one of us has gone through a point in our career where the rent was always too darn high. And you want to know why the rent's high? Because there's nothing affordable. It's supply and demand. How many houses, Mr. Chairman, are available for purchase in the town of Franklin? Single family houses? 4. That's why the rent is too damn high. And the reality is, there is no affordable housing because we don't allow it. And we're a purely supply and demand community like the rest of Massachusetts. I read an interview yesterday with the governor and lieutenant governor. There's no money coming from the state, in my view, anytime soon to subsidize housing construction. So there are a lot of concerns about traffic. There are a lot of concerns I share about mitigation. About the proximity, the location. I wish I could have 10 acres somewhere else. But look at Franklin Ridge, 60 units of permitted senior housing that the town sponsored. We've donated money to it. We've gotten $3.5 million MassWorks grants. I'm still thinking that project, if we got that done by 2030, would be a miracle. At the end of the day, Brian's presentation last week gave me a statistic that I did not understand and I did not know, and I was shocked at. That if the status quo and we build nothing, whether it's single family homes, apartments, condos, affordable, it doesn't matter. Whatever, you know, tiny homes, accessory dwelling units, whatever way we want to look at it, if we don't increase anything, you're going to be under 10% in 2030. You're going to be under at 9.5%. And I think this is a case of a difficult, very challenging situation for myself, all of you, and everybody in town to try to figure out, do we want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good? And I respect all of the opinions and comments that people make. I share those same difficult, the height of the building I share concerns over. I share concerns over the traffic. But what I hear is the number one concern in Massachusetts is housing. Luxury housing, high rent housing, single family housing, affordable housing, low income housing, housing across the board. And so when we talk about rents and mortgages and interest rates being high, one of the reasons why is because there just simply is not anywhere near as much housing stock that there is for the demand. And so the prices have gone through the roof, and that's one of the challenges. So I just wanted to point out a few of those other things. And through you, Mr. Chairman, one last comment, a couple of minor things. We just purchased 200 acres of open space in Franklin over the last year and a half. We're very proud of that. I'm proud of it, you're proud of it. Historic community achievement. That could have been 120 single-family homes. And we made a decision, the inverse, which was the right decision, to say, we're not going to have those there. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I just bring up the friendly 40B process. As Brian and others eloquently stated, we didn't need to do this. But in the best interest of the community, it was our feeling with the staff, particularly my own, and I'll take responsibility for this, that to just randomly have projects pop up, I really believe bothers people more than projects they're peripherally aware of, they might know. And through the planning board, conservation, the council, and I think a lot of citizens as well, and a lot of developers, we've been able to have a lot of lively conversations around how can we make a project better. I'm not sure where housing will be built. I don't know. Applications are down at the planning board. I don't see a lot more housing coming. This is a very challenging decision for the community. It's a very challenging decision for the council, and a very challenging decision for the ZBA as well as DHCD. It's not easy. But I encourage everybody who's watching tonight to just think about some of these dynamics. And if If not this, what? Where? I don't know. I'm not thrilled with every element of this. The staff struggle with many aspects of this project too. I think they're all out on the table. I just don't know where we go as a town and a region with where we're gonna build anything anywhere. I really don't. I just don't. I'm being honest. I don't see rumors, I don't hear rumors of new developments. The 117 station was one of the last larger tracts of land anywhere in downtown. I think the community at some point through the master planning process is going to have to engage in this issue pretty heavily. I don't know where else to build. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Attorney Searle.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify on the projections on going under 10%, what that means. If it happens, it's not that you're exposed for the delta to get back over 10%, you are totally exposed. So a developer could come in with hundreds of units, even if you were 1 unit short, or as long as you're below 10%, multiple developers could come in with projects, and it all depends on whether or not you're over 10% at the point where they file.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In lieu of our discussion and respecting the process, this friendly fee process, and I totally agree with the town administrator that this didn't have to happen, but it is great that you've taken the steps that you've taken. In lieu of that, and in lieu of respect to that process, I think there's a lot of questions that have come out of tonight. Would you be willing to come back to the council with another presentation with some of the questions, some of the answers to the questions that were posed tonight?
Are you specifically referring to like traffic counts and things like that?
Yeah, just some of the specific questions that came up.
I don't want to speak for Rob, but I'll speak up and say that part of the problem with the chicken or the egg is that there's a significant financial contribution to get to the point where we're providing all of this detailed information, which we know we're going to have to do with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I might suggest to the councilor that to echo the citizen's comment, Joe's comment, that allow us to go through the process, allow us to invest the money and do the studies and work with the ZBA where we invite you to participate in the process as well. And let's make this a good project rather than us try to permit the project at this level when we haven't even gone to the permit granting authority to begin with. So let us go forward with it, and we invite you to participate, and through that process, I think that's already in place, we can try to get the project that everyone can live with and be proud of.
I completely understand, and there's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort that went into all of this, and I think one of my issues is that based on some of the major concerns, at least the feeling I get from my council, is that this, as it stands now, based on tonight's discussion, may not be in an affirmative. That's my only problem with some of the questions that have come up. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table Resolution 2326 to our next meeting to try to afford some answers to some of the
Wait for
questions.
legislation to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're not interested.
Well,
It's the next thing.
yeah,
It's the
it
next
is
thing.
the next thing. So is there anything that anybody else wanted to add?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. I know the time and effort that's gone into this, and I believe that you folks have done everything that we've asked you to do to date as far as working the process. So I very much appreciate that. So with that, I will move on. That was discussions. We'll move on to legislation for action. Resolution 23-26, Franklin Town Council support for proposed General Law Chapter 40B Affordable Housing Project at 121 Grove Street pursuant to DHCD's Local Initiative Program, LIP, Friendly 40B. Clerk will read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Resolution 23-26. Franklin Town Council support for proposed general law, Chapter 40B, affordable housing project at 121 Grove Street pursuant to DHCD's local initiative program, LIP Friendly 40B, whereas general law, Chapter 40B, Section 20-23 provides a legal framework for the creation of local affordable housing.
Motion with reading.
Second.
Motion is second to waive the reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move resolution 23-26.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jamie,
Okay.
anything? Councilor Frangillo?
I would just add, for the record, I don't know where we're going. I think where I currently stand is leaning in favor of allowing them to move forward. They seem like very willing participants. They've made some commitments to working through some contributions to the town and making sure that this project works. This is in no way an endorsement of the project as it stands, but rather that we accept the baseline understanding that this could be a residential unit that adds affordable housing to our inventory, that adds a whole bunch of revenue to our inventory. The actual details still need to be worked out, and I would certainly not feel comfortable endorsing the project and putting a final stamp on it today, but I do feel comfortable that, that they're strong partners in continuing to move forward. That's where I'm feeling and leaning. Just as we go.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Pellegrini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't have another vote coming after tonight on this project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So for you to say that,
Does it-
Counselor,
Okay.
is not correct.
Direct your questions
I said through the chair.
through the chair.
Yeah.
Okay. That's correct, but they don't have to be here tonight to get our endorsement.
Right.
But by the same token, I think to Councilors Frangillo's, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think we as a council need to have confidence in our zoning board of appeals, as well as our planning board, to continue to work and deal with the issues that they've brought forward. I mean, I think we have to have that confidence in the process. There's a process in place to make sure these kinds of things get done right. And I think we have to have confidence in our local boards to deal with them, and certainly not to say that we can't be there and issuing and stating our opinions and what we like, what we don't like, whether we don't like the project at all, or whether there's parts of it we'd like to see them do. We have other opportunities to do that, not as a council, but as citizens, as well as councilors. I'm sorry. Councilor Blake.
Yeah, you have the floor.
But our resolution tonight says that we are in support. So by
Of
voting this, we're going to be-
paperwork being filed,
A proposed chapter,
of the paperwork to be filed to let them continue to work with the authorities. Am I mistaken by that comment?
No, I mean, I think it's a difficult thread, but the ultimate action from this, you are not permitting any project.
No.
You have no jurisdiction over wetlands.
Right.
There are obviously waivers that are not under the purview of the town council. Every other board's gonna have the crack at this from a permitting perspective, with the exception of the planning board. There is no role in a 40B for the planning board. Those go through the zoning board of appeals, that's the state law. The support for the project is essentially to move the paperwork to the Department of Community Housing Development. I will say, because this is unique, and we've, as a community, not really gone through this before, the ability for the council or others to get their mitigation in, I think, is to some degree premature. Everybody said it and we know it. There's no traffic studies done. We don't know exactly where the buildings are going to be in the wetlands. The delineations are going to continue on. And I don't have a timeline. I honestly don't have a timeline for that stuff. And so it is an awkward position where you're supporting me going to the state to move the process along, but obviously to Councilor Pellegri's comments, and I can understand them, a lot of people may just say, oh, wow, they all support the project, right? And I think that that's, you know, that's something that's hard to communicate, kind of like water bans.
Could we change,
Yeah.
could we change the word support?
I think, yeah,
Mark,
Attorney
what do you
Surratt.
say?
So technically, under the state regulations, a letter of support, which is what's in the DHED regulations, comes from the chief executive officer of the municipality. Given our particular form of government here, the chief executive officer, although he could just do it on his own unilaterally, wants to be given the instruction as to how to proceed by the council. So you're basically filling in the background, kind of shadowing, to tell the TA how you want to proceed.
I still would feel much more comfortable through you, Mr. Chair, without that word support. Because it is showing that we support this. And a lot of us don't support it, but we're willing to listen to the next stages that have to be done.
The support is for whatever influence it has on the zoning board of appeals, understanding that it's their decision, they're not bound by the fact that the town legislature or executive body supports, quote-unquote, the project. There's going to have to be the give and take, there's going to have to be the pinning down of whatever concessions, mitigation, or whatever is worked out, perhaps a number of building reconfiguration, what have you, because ultimately, the only ones that really matter in the long run are the 3 members of the zoning board of appeals,
Right.
2 of whom have to vote in the affirmative.
Yeah, I see.
Well, for the reason of having that word in there, I'm going to have to vote no on this when it comes up.
Thank you, Councilor Pellegrini. Councilor Chandler?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is it doesn't matter what we say, because they're going to go to the Board of Appeals no matter what.
Yeah.
And then we need to be there, because there is a list of waivers as long as my arm.
Yep.
And they're going to need to, I don't know if they put in writing why they support things, but they're going to need to do that. And that's where I'm at. No matter what I say tonight, they are going to the Board of Appeals.
Right.
So why am I doing?
Just support your
Yeah.
support.
You all set, Brian?
Thank you, sir.
Councilor
Thank you.
DeLoco?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Listen,
It's gonna go to the-
it was funny, when we went over the 10%, the big idea was, when we were all in the council, oh, now everything comes in front of us. And that's not true. Obviously, we were lied to, but it's not true. Because now they can just go to the zoning board of appeals, and get a friendly 40B, right? So why don't we just don't care about 2030? They'll just go to the zoning board of appeals and get a friendly 40B. And what's gonna be left in 2030 to build anything? There's nothing left in Franklin.
Right.
There's nothing left.
Now.
So what are we worried about?
Any other comments? Okay. The vote will come on the motion to approve Resolution 23-26. A majority votes required.
Yeah, the majority.
You want to roll?
Sure.
Let's make this a roll call vote.
All right. Cormier Ledger.
No.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Chandler.
No.
Frangillo.
Yes.
Pellegri.
No.
Hamlin.
Yes.
Jones. No. DeLorca.
No.
Mercer.
Chair, yes.
And yes. So that's 4-5. Sir?
So motion fails.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Resolution 23-27, acceptance of an additional 2% COLA for retirees as authorized by Chapter 269 of the Legislative Acts of 2022. Clerk will read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a second. This is Resolution 23-27, acceptance of an additional 2% COLA for retirees as authorized by Chapter 269 of Legislative Acts 2022. Whereas Chapter 269 of the Legislative Acts of 2022 provides an additional 2%, total of 5% cost of living increase for eligible Norfolk County Retirement System retirees for fiscal year 23, retroactive to July 1st, 2022. Upon acceptance by vote of Norfolk County Retirement System and local municipal acceptance, and whereas the Norfolk County Retirement Board voted favorably to approve the measures of November 30th, 2022, and whereas local municipal acceptance occurs when the Franklin Town Council votes favorably on the measure, which vote must be taken on or before June 30th, 2023. Now therefore be it voted by the Franklin Town Council acting on behalf of the Town of Franklin that the Town of Franklin hereby accepts Chapter 269 of Legislative Acts of 2022, and as provided in the Norfolk County Retirement Board's vote on November 30th, 2022, agrees that eligible Norfolk County Retirement System retirees shall receive an additional 2%, total of 5% cost of living increase of fiscal year 23, retroactive to July 1st, 2022. This resolution to become effective according to the provisions of the Town of Franklin Home Rule Charter.
Move Resolution 23-27.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is a request by the county. My knowledge is the overwhelming majority, if not every other community in Norfolk, has voted to increase the COLA for retirees this year by an additional 2%. It was 3, and to my knowledge, again, almost every community has voted in favor, so I'm requesting that the council votes in favor to give the retirees an additional 2%. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Cormier-Ledger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the town administrator, how much is currently in our budget to support, is this request going to be in addition to what we currently budget for this?
Going to say something inaccurate but accurate. It doesn't, it's not a correlation. It's not a budgetary item for the town. It comes off the county assessment, so there is no real actual budget impact.
So this, we're voting to approve something that doesn't actually have a financial impact to Franklin?
Right. It will, but it doesn't right now. It doesn't have, this is not a 2% cost driver in the budget today. This comes from county money. Does that make sense? This is from the contributions from the employees through the pension system.
But you said it's not going to impact us now, but it will impact us later. So I guess then the second part of my question is when does this in fact hit us as a body?
I'm guessing FY25, possibly FY26. Ultimately, the pension system's the pension system, and it's run by the state, and we basically just do what they ask us to do. If we don't fund this obligation, you're going to have way more angry people at you than any housing development in Franklin. I can assure you of that. And I'm pointing it out because it's very, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, I'm just struggling, and with all due respect, Councilor Cormier-Ledger, we can do a pension 102, 101, 202. It doesn't act like a 2% cost driver on the tax bill. It's hard to explain, but I can't explain it without going into a 5-minute pension
Okay,
system
I
explanation.
don't want you to do a 45-minute presentation.
It would, even 15 minutes?
Not even.
No. And I refuse to apologize for asking a question.
No, it's a phenomenal question. It's a question that is extremely complicated, and we need to
Maybe an offline
we need to
discussion.
teach about the retirement system.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want any retiree, including those on this panel, to be angry at me for not giving them 2% as they're enjoying their time in Florida. I don't want that. I was just asking who bears this new burden, because I know we have some tough budget discussions going on right now. So I will give up my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cormier-Ledger. Councilor Frangillo?
I'll take that exact time to ask very similar questions. I do want that 15-minute presentation. It doesn't have to be now. I don't have a great understanding of how this affects our liabilities, but it seems like it has to.
So here's what happened, through you, Mr. Chairman. So here's the essential basic number. So the pension liability, what you aim for is 100% fundability of your pension system. The pension system in Norfolk County and statewide is probably somewhere in their 70 or 80% fully funded right now. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's very, very high. So instead of, say, 85% of the pension obligation being funded right now, this additional cost increase then drives down the percentage of the liability that is funded. It actually doesn't really have a budget impact other than we get pension assessments from Norfolk County every year. This year it's like $350,000. Last year it was $500,000. The year before that it was another $500,000. And I'm just trying to like cut to the chase in the sense they send you the bill and you either pay it or you don't. And I can assure every single one of you, every town manager and board of selectmen, elected official in Norfolk County and every other county struggles to deal with the accountability of the pension systems in general. As Norfolk managers, we ask for presentations out of the county a lot. They don't do them. They kind of do, but they don't. It's just a very, very challenging issue to get our arms around. But in essence, it's not like a 2% like a COLA. It's the liability percentage that is fully funded now will drop a couple percent, but eventually that number will go back up because over the course of time, the valuation grows. That's the best I can do in 3 minutes.
Yes. But a further explanation another time would be helpful.
I would be more than happy to.
Thank you.
I would love to.
Yeah, and this is just to say that, you know, at the end of the day, it is still, you know, money that will need to be paid. It maybe it spreads it out over a longer period of time. It allows for the pension system to, at some point, we're saying we're guaranteeing money to retirees.
So one-year thing.
It's a state
this
worker.
year. This fiscal year.
This is why it requires every community in Norfolk County to vote yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And we're the last one.
And we're the last.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
That's all fine. It just seems like, you know, I just wanted to defend the notion of scoffing at, I think, a well-intended and very well-meaning, you know, everyone, if given the opportunity to get an extra $300 a year, they would want that, and they would be mad if they had an opportunity to get it and we took that from them. It doesn't mean that it's money that we have, and so I think it's a very reasonable thing to make sure that any time we're committing to money that we figure that out. That was my point. I would love an explanation of pensions at.
Okay. And we will, I promise you, we will do that so that everybody understands. Okay. Councilor DeLonco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll get there someday, Cole.
That-
You'll get there someday when you're gonna want a little bit of a raise.
State worker. What? I'll max out. Okay.
But I'll be honest with you, my buddy that I work with is the Peabody City Councilor, and they're only like 56% close. We're lucky because Norfolk County has good people that invest the right way. That's why we're so high up.
That's
We're in
right.
our 70s. That just, I know that's kind of weird, but like 56%, he told me today, 56%. And I thought, I think my wife told me we were close to like 76%, which is like, I think 2031, we might be fully vested.
Right.
Which is incredible for 28 towns, to be honest with you. And
sure.
And you
If
need
the
a
economy
better,
continues, but
yeah. You
Okay.
need a better explanation.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the vote will come on the motion to approve Resolution 23-27. A majority votes required. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bylaw Amendment 23-893, Amendment to Sewer System Map. Second reading. Clerk will read the bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is bylaw amendment 23-893, amendment to sewer system map. Bylaw to amend the Code of Town of Franklin, Chapter 139, entitled Sewers, as follows. Be enacted by the Franklin Town Council that Chapter 139-14 of the Code of Town of Franklin, entitled Sewer System Map, Exhibit A map, amended by adding the following extension as an eligible location. 139-14, Exhibit A, extending sewer system for cannabis grow facilities at 160 Grove Street. The proposed sewer extension will involve connecting to the existing gravity sewer, which terminates in front of number 168 Grove Street, Franklin Tile, and installing new gravity sewer approximately 600 feet northerly and upstream to the area in front of number 160 Grove Street. This bylaw shall not become effective until all conditions agreed to between the property owner and DPW are satisfied. This bylaw shall become effective according to the provisions of the Town of Franklin Home Rule Charter.
Move bylaw amendment 23-893.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion, Jamie?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is the second and final reading of the sewer map amendment to 160 Grove. Just for reference, the last roll call vote a month ago was 8-1. This is the second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Plagree?
Through the chair. This doesn't have anything to do with the 161 that we just talked about?
No, that's 121.
Pardon?
We just talked about 121.
For when they
Yeah,
came before
yeah.
us? All right, so it's not.
No, it has nothing to do with
Just
it.
wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, the vote will come on the motion to approve bylaw amendment 23-893. A majority roll call vote is required. Clerk will call the roll.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Tommy Ledger.
Yes.
Frangillo.
Yes.
Chandler.
That's another no.
Pellegri.
Yes.
Hamblin.
Yes.
Jones, yes. Vice Chair.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes,
That is 8-1 no, sir.
motion carries. Town Administrator's report.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to the Franklin Fire Department and the Senior Center staff for a packed house today for the annual corned beef dinner. Close call, almost didn't have it. I got to give a shout out to Mike and Rescue 24 and the teams that have been down there. For those of you that will be down there hopefully tomorrow, the Senior Center office hours, 8:30 tomorrow morning. It's on. It's going to be in the cafe. People have a chance to look at the facility and the fixes that have been made. But I can't thank enough for the Senior Center staff who did a great job, the firefighters. It just looked like a very, very festive and jovial spot. And then I just want to offer a rare deep condolences to Sergeant Palmieri, the police department, and the entire Franklin Police Department community, and the Oak Street, the Oak School community, in Franklin Public Schools, for the loss of Bianca Palmieri, who passed away this week at the age of 45, very sadly from a long bout with breast cancer. If many of you may have noticed tonight, all the police officers in town are wearing the breast cancer awareness patch. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. It's been something we've all worked with the PD on for years, and our deep condolences to Nick and the whole police department family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Subcommittee reports, Capital hasn't met, EDC.
Can I just
Yes, you can.
mention our next meeting?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't met since our last meeting, since our last full town council meeting, but we have a meeting next Wednesday at 6 o'clock here in Chambers. We have the whole night to discuss accessory dwelling units. And it's the Franklin for All Steering Committee, so it's going to be another lively discussion. And I hope everybody tunes in and joins the conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Budget Subcommittee, we did meet, and we had some very lively discussions and most of it centered on a lot of the school side of the budget. So I think the plan, as the budget process continues, we will probably not have another joint budget subcommittee meeting prior to our scheduled budget hearings, which are May 24th and 5th. So that Wednesday and Thursday night will be a full, and the schools will be having their budget hearing
March 28th.
March 28th. So those that can, I say, please tune in, pay attention, ask some questions. It's going to be a difficult budget season, and I think going forward, the next year or two are going to be very similar. So it's important that we all pay very close attention to the municipal part of the budget as well as the school part of the budget. So, Gatra?
Just real quick, we did not meet, we're not meeting this month, but we are preparing the budget, and they're hoping to have that by May. They're moving some things. It's going to look like a different budget, hopefully a little easier to read for all of us, but that'll be done in May.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Future agenda items. Councilor Cormier Ledger.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Chandler.
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Pellegrini.
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Sheridan.
Yeah, maybe a discussion about having a place to put up different types of flags that was brought up earlier.
Yeah, I think, Jamie,
Gonna put that
you had a
on.
conversation.
Oh, we were just going to talk about permitting and
Yeah.
with Amber. Yeah, I'll meet with her at some point.
And maybe not just in general, yeah.
Okay, looking for a place in town.
Yeah.
Other than
Whatever.
regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councilor Frangillo?
I was going to say something similar. If you feel like you need a policy, then I would like to provide you with that policy in order to make what I think is a no-brain decision to raise the pride flag for a tree.
Sure.
Anything else?
That's it.
Councilor Hamblin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree to have that, what Councilor Sheridan and Councilor Frangillo talked about. Also, I think it would be really good to have a discussion about
Pensions.
the pensions
Sorry, yeah.
that we talked about.
We will.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh,
all
we
right.
will.
I just want to make sure we
Oh,
got
we
it
will.
on there
That
for
was put to
Councilor
bed,
Frangillo.
that was put to bed 10 minutes ago.
Okay, I know, but I just want to make sure stated when it was supposed to be
Yeah,
stated.
very good.
Right, because this is when we state those things.
good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are correct, and thank you, Councilor Hamblin.
No.
Council-
You already did that.
Already did that, sir. Councilor Jones.
No future agenda items, sir.
Just had to write that down.
Okay.
Councilor DeLorco.
No, but Jamie, if you would like, I could probably pressure my wife to have Kathleen come and give it, Kathleen would be the.
You have no idea how excited
How
that
you
would
just
be.
made his night.
You made my night. If Kathleen
I
were sitting here
can-
talking about the pension,
I can text her right, Kathleen.
she's
right now.
exceptionally bright. She knows
She's
exactly what she's
wicked
talking
smart.
about. She just doesn't come out of the office much.
Well, we can get her. I can get her.
But I know you got a few, you know a
I
few
can
people.
get her. Let's get her.
There is a connection.
She speaks for like all the other pension people, like the city of Boston, Massport, MBTA. They hire her to. Yeah, she's really good. But I will get her here.
Great.
That's good.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Okay, councilor comments. Councilor Sheridan.
Just happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody.
Councilor Frangillo.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to rattle off a few. Arts and Culture Symposium, Metro West Arts and Culture Symposium, that's at Dean on the 30th. That should be a great panel discussion, some really good participants there. Open Space and Rec Survey is still open until April 16th if you haven't participated in that yet. Arts and Culture Survey is open until June 1st. We had a great first arts and culture discussion. If you weren't able to take part, or even if you were, we'd love to see you at the library, 9 to 11 a.m. on April 28th. So you got some time to put that on your schedule. Senior office hours are tomorrow. And then next week, on the 29th, 4 to 6 p.m., there's going to be a Converse and Conserve workshop is what they're calling it. If you own land and want to learn more about how to pass on an estate, how to potentially conserve it, get some benefits from that. If you own a large piece of land, that would be a great opportunity to bring a ton of people together. And it's Birchwood refreshments. We got a nice grant to make that a real nice event. So if you have a large parcel of land, stop by 29th, 4 to 6 p.m. here at the Municipal Building.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Hamlin.
He said that almost as fast as I did.
Yeah, you were good there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything that Councilor Frangillo said, plus I would like to give my personal condolences to the Palmieri family. They've been very supportive of me in general, and I really just want them to know that I'm thinking about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. Councilor Cormier-Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also want to offer my condolences to the Palmieri family. Congrats and welcome to all of our new police officers. Seems like that was 5 days ago. But congratulations to all of them. I want to thank everyone that did come out to our first Arts and Culture Subcommittee meeting last week at Dean. It was a really great discussion. It was a full room, and we're looking forward to those additional conversations. Congratulations to the cast, staff, and volunteers of Something Rotten at the Black Box. I was able to go this past weekend, and what a fantastic performance, and truly how lucky we are to have that kind of high-quality performance going on in our town. And I guess lastly, I just want to throw out my public support, not for what Ms. Wilson brought up earlier, not just about the Pride flag and us showing our support as a council for Pride Month, but just in general, our efforts to really, figure this issue out. I think to continue to sort of say, we don't want to deal with it is not the right approach. I think the time is now, and I appreciate her bringing that up and being brave enough to stand in front of all of us and say, please do something about this. She's certainly not alone, and that will have my full support. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cormier-Ledger. Councilor Chandler.
I just want to bring something up that I've been a little confused about. I know you guys over there, they can't speak to it, but last week or so, the Mass Supreme Court came down with a ruling, like people that are the chairman, what they can put people down for or tell them to sit down. I just wondered if they could put something out, because all of us could be a chairman. If we're vice chair, you're in Florida,
Sure.
And, just because this sounds kind of bad, but just because someone at the speaker hurts Tom's feelings does not give you the right to tell him to sit down.
That's correct.
And I think sometimes that happens in this town, and they get gavelled down. So I just didn't know, if we know all this, and you get into someone's civil rights like that, you lose your qualified immunity to bring up that word, because it's always on us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, actually, I think
Mark,
that's
Mark
yes,
and I had
please.
this conversation.
Oh, all right.
Already.
I'm
Go
not going to
ahead.
get into a big, long...
No, I don't want you to.
I understand that, and you may know as well, MMA is putting out a detailed guidance. They're working on it now with input from all the lawyers that are available to them so that you'll know how to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody can stand up and call me anything except for Bobby.
No, I
Bobby
can't.
can't.
No, I can't.
I wouldn't call him anything either.
Yeah. Councilor Pellegrini.
We have in our rules and orders something to do with the chairman having somebody sit down. So maybe that's what has to be changed or added to.
Councilor, Attorney Sorrell.
First of all, the open meeting law addresses it, and also the fact of you can still regulate disruptive conduct.
Right.
But you can't have, what they said in a nutshell is you cannot have a code of civility. It impinges on not only the First Amendment, but more importantly, provisions in the state's own constitution that go way the heck back to colonial times, so.
But disruption and things like that, that's when you can't.
I'd
Yeah,
like
Counsel,
to-
you still,
I would like to bring up once again about the Rod and Gun Club's breakfast. It's going to be this Sunday. Starts at 7:30. And last time I brought it up at the meeting, they had a full house. It was just wonderful there, and they were so pleased. So once again, I'm bringing it up, and know that it's pancakes and sausage and bacon and hash browns and everything imaginable.
everything that's
$8.
really good for you.
Really good for us. $8 for adults and $4 for children. And perhaps I should have mentioned this under agenda items, but an update on the brick school and the old museum, what's happening there? You know, how far along we are now?
The Red Brick Schoolhouse, very briefly, the windows, this is just a matter of life these days.
Supply
People
chain
make
issues.
mistakes. The windows that were sent were rejected because they were 4 inches too wide. And so it's a bummer, but, you know, we'll move on. You know, we reordered them, they'll be here in 4 months, 5 months, and maybe 6, like the traffic light on Grove. Maybe it will wait 2 years. No, and I know it sounds cranky and funny, but it's true. Things just take a long time to get here. So the windows were just completely screwed up. We didn't pay for them. We rejected them. The windows in the door are pretty much the parts remaining. The Historical Museum cupola is probably still a year out. The backlog of projects on Mike's team is just so much, and that's a very complicated project. But the money stays there, and we'll get to it when we get to it.
Has Habitat for Humanity's been working at the museum?
No. What?
My question.
Oh, I thought you were
The
talking
old
about the
museum.
Historical
No,
Museum.
No,
That's the church.
South Franklin.
Oh, yeah, they're drafting they're evaluating a preservation restriction with the Commonwealth, so they're working on that on their end. We won't probably hear from them for a couple more months.
When we see work, we can mention it.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. I thought you were talking about the museum cupola. My
Yeah.
apologies.
No, well, I mean
That too.
Well, that give you the update.
Okay, and lastly, the Palmieri family, my deepest sympathy to them.
Thank you, Councilor Pellegrini.
Don't
Council-
forget me.
Councilor Jones.
Yes, sympathies to the Palmieri family, that's really sad. And congratulations to our new Franklin Police Department officers, that was awesome. I love having these ceremonies and chambers, Mr. Chairman, it's great to see them sworn in tonight. I want to give a big, huge thank you to my fellow councilors and my new teammates. As part of the master plan, I can assure you, I promise to do my best and work with you to make our next master plan the best master plan for the town of Franklin moving forward, including and encompassing many different things. Hopefully having all the citizens who have an interest in making the town of Franklin a better place to live and raise a family. Come on down, we're going to have some very hearty discussions in the next 12 to 18 months on the master plan. It's going to be very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I couldn't, of course, go to the night without mentioning how proud I am of my son, who actually just got pinned and officially promoted to the highest rank of chief in the U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps. It's the highest rank that the Sea Cadets afford our cadets. There's no other rank after that other than aging out of the program at 19 in June. I just want to say that I'm so proud of him. He's put in 4.5 hard years to get to that point, and it's kind of like equal to the Eagle Scouts for Boy Scouts, except for the Sea Cadets. So, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Jones, and congratulations to your son. Councilor DeLarco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Of course, condolences to the Palmieri family. I mean, that's very, very sad. And actually to the ex-owner of the Union Cafe, Willie Colaci, passed away. He passed away the other day. Always a funny guy, always had something to say. But condolences to his family too. And Jamie, I got a couple of complaints about the traffic and funny about the traffic in front of St. Mary's Church. People are there complaining about, they think it's the wrong way, and I don't know how to tell them, I think it's a police issue. They think that the right lane should go straight and right, and just the left lane turn left. Because they say it backs way up, and it did. I went there at 5 o'clock, it backed up. But I have no answer for them. I don't, yeah, it makes sense to me, but it could be a police issue, you know? So, it's in front of the church, because they can go right on red, or if they went straight.
Going down south.
Going down Beavis.
Going down Beaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's well marked.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but
Weird.
they're saying the traffic is too busy because it's hard to take a left there.
Oh, so it should be the same.
It should be the other way. The
lanes.
left lane should just take lefts instead of the right lane just taking rights. And the right lane should go right and straight.
Actually, that makes sense.
Maybe you can
Fixed.
ask the chief. to
Totally
look into
fixed.
that.
There you go.
Done. No,
I
I
have no idea.
I don't either. I think people are just probably gonna be stuck in traffic. It's just, I don't think, I don't,
Right? Welcome to Franklin Drive.
I'm all set. I just
Yeah.
how to handle
Yeah,
that.
no,
That's-
good, that's good. You handled it well. Okay,
Steve's still here.
again, I'd like to.
And Amber and Griffin. Amber's the troubadour. Look, she's still in the back. She was here first one.
My turn.
My turn.
I'd like to thank everybody that was here this evening. I'd like to thank it's great, as Councilor Jones said, to have the swearing in of the new police officers, and to have 4 of them at one time coming in was really good. And I like the support from the police community when they come before us to be sworn in. And our presenters this evening, both the chief on the flock cameras as well as Fairfield on 121 Grove. So I thank everybody for their participation this evening, and sorry for the lengthy night, but at this juncture, I would entertain a motion.
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Second.
Non-debatable.
Thank you, Councilor Hamblin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?